Story 1. Husband cheated on me with a stripper and threw a birthday party for me where he announced she was pregnant with his child. His sister helped me expose everything to his family. My husband, Cole, and I have been married for 8 years now. It all started when I was a 28-year-old personal assistant grappling with the loss of my father. Losing a parent leaves you feeling incredibly isolated and empty, as anyone who's been through it knows. I was in a really tough spot emotionally. Then, along came Cole, this charming older man who seemed to know exactly what to say to lift my spirits. We did have a cliché story in the beginning, and maybe that is why I fell head over heels for him at that time. He was everything I was looking for. Safe, reliable, and affectionate. We used to go on these amazing dates, and he always treated me like a true gentleman. My mom absolutely loved him from the start. When I met his parents, there was some initial tension because we come from different ethnic backgrounds, but over time they've really warmed up to me. His sister, Kylie, and I hit it off right away, and we became incredibly close. We talk regularly and often go shopping or grab lunch together. Kylie feels like the sister I have always wished for but never had. She and I share everything with each other, and sometimes I feel incredibly grateful that, because of my husband, I have her in my life. Cole and I were still deeply immersed in our lovey-dovey phase when he spontaneously decided to propose to me. He had completely caught me off guard with a surprise engagement party, inviting all our loved ones. Without much hesitation, I said yes. I can still vividly recall the smiles on the faces of our families as they kept raving about how Cole and I were made for each other. I admit, for a long time, I wholeheartedly believed it too. Our wedding went well without any incidents, and for our honeymoon, we spent 2 weeks in Mexico. It was only when we returned home that reality hit us hard. Moving into his place became quite a challenge because he was very particular about his belongings and didn't want me to alter anything in his living room or bedroom by adding my own touch. I tried to compromise by suggesting that I could slowly incorporate my style around the house so he could adjust to it. However, then he had an issue with the size of my wardrobe, claiming that nobody in their right mind needs so many clothes. While I'm certainly no fashion influencer, like any other woman, I did have a collection of clothes that I didn't want to part with. He insisted that I needed to downsize my wardrobe as much as possible since he didn't want me to take over half of his wardrobe space. Understanding his concerns, I agreed that I didn't want him to feel cramped in his own space. Instead of keeping my clothes in our bedroom, I decided to take over the guest room for my wardrobe. Next, he had an issue with my fridge magnets. Growing up, I always dreamt of exploring new places, so when I finally got a job, I made it a point to save up and travel as much as possible. One of my little traditions was collecting fridge magnets from each new destination I visited and proudly displaying them on my fridge as mementos of my adventures. However, Cole always found them to be tacky and cheap-looking. He vehemently refused to allow any of my magnets on our fridge. We had some heated arguments about it, but he eventually urged us not to start our marriage on rocky ground, so I reluctantly agreed to let it go. During the first 2 years of my marriage, I spent a lot of time hanging out with my family and friends. Cole, on the other hand, was more of a homebody, especially since he worked long hours and often felt drained. I enjoyed being social and going out with my friends, so I didn't mind going out alone sometimes. Cole would suggest that I stay home, but we still made time for date nights twice a week, which I cherished. Most evenings, I preferred spending time with him, but occasionally I liked meeting up with other people too. Similarly, he had his own interests like hanging out with his golf buddies on Sundays, and I never had an issue with that. However, in the 3rd year of our marriage, I noticed a shift in Cole's behavior. When we got married, we were pretty clear that we didn't want children. But out of nowhere, Cole suddenly started telling me that he wanted to be a father and how he would love to have a baby with me. This took me by surprise, and I brought back how it was both our decisions to never be parents. But Cole brushed it off, saying that he wanted to see me with a pregnant belly. His words made me feel extremely uncomfortable. On multiple occasions, he would insist on not using a condom, which made me even more fearful that he was trying to forcefully make me pregnant. I had several conversations with him, trying to understand why he wanted to be a father so suddenly, when until last year he had been saying he loved the fact that we had no extra responsibilities of having children. Cole continued to insist that once I was pregnant and I could give up my job, everything would become perfect in our marriage. The thought of losing my job terrified me. I know a lot of you might not agree with this, but I decided to start taking birth control pills after making an appointment with my gynecologist. Thankfully, it worked and I never got pregnant. Meanwhile, Cole's behavior continued to get erratic. He even started questioning me about who I was hanging out with and where we were going whenever I wanted to spend time with my friends. He would comment on the type of outfits I wore, which was surprising to me because I've always been modest in my clothing choices. He would suggest that I should cover up more, even if I was wearing a normal shirt with a jacket, saying how he was concerned about what other guys might think when they saw me. At first, I brushed it off, but then he started getting more aggressive, insisting every time that I change into a different outfit before going out. It made me feel uncomfortable and unsure about what was happening in our relationship. A few weeks after this, I started noticing that some of my favorite clothes were missing from my wardrobe. Initially, I thought I was going crazy and turned the house upside down searching for them. When I asked Cole about it, he claimed to have no idea. However, while rummaging through the garage, I stumbled upon my clothes stuffed into an empty shoebox. I was furious and confronted him about it. At first, he denied knowing anything about it, but I pointed out that it was just the two of us in the house, so he couldn't avoid responsibility this time. After some argument, he finally admitted that he had hidden my clothes to prevent me from wearing them when I went out with my friends. I was appalled and furious. He continued to justify, saying how he was just trying to save my face, as girls who dressed up like that were often labeled as characterless or easy by guys. I lost my temper and yelled at him that he had gone insane and that he had no right to determine what I could or could not wear. I pointed out to him that I was married to him for the past 3 years and had never been disloyal, so why would he care so much about what other men thought? I made it clear that no reasonable person would behave in such a controlling manner toward their partner. In the end, he apologized, and because this was the first weird thing he had ever done to me, I thought maybe he was just going through a phase or something, so I let it go. However, it kept getting worse. I began to notice that messages from my friends and family were mysteriously disappearing from my phone. For instance, if I had a conversation with my mother and made plans to meet up, I'd find no trace of our chats a couple of days later. It left me completely baffled. At first, I thought it might be a bug on my phone, so I updated it to fix any potential issues. Then, one of my friends called me to inform me about a small party she was planning at her place with her close friends and asked if I was available. She mentioned that she would send me the party invitation soon. However, I never received them on my phone. When she called later to ask why I hadn't replied, I explained that I never received any message from her. After our conversation, it wasn't until I attended her party that weekend that she showed me how she had indeed sent me the invitation, which I never received. It was all very strange and unsettling. I began to suspect my phone was hacked, so I decided to buy a new phone for myself. I am an emotional hoarder, so I didn't want to sell my old phone just in case I could fix it in the future. Throughout this time, I had been sharing these strange occurrences with my husband, Cole, and he seemed just as puzzled as I was. However, the day I bought my new phone, I didn't think to mention it to him. That night, I woke up feeling really thirsty and got up to get some water. As I entered the living room, I was startled to see my husband crouched on the sofa holding both phones in his hands. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust, but once they did, I could see that he was going through my phone. I couldn't contain my shock and frustration, and I asked him loudly what the hell he was doing. He jumped, clearly caught off guard by my sudden appearance. He started babbling about how clearly I was cheating since I had bought another phone without asking him. He went off on a rant about how he should have never trusted me, while I stood there in shock, trying to comprehend what was happening in the middle of the night. I calmly explained to him that he already knew the issues I was facing with my old phone, and I had just bought the new phone, which I had not even set up yet, so he could have just waited for me to mention it to him the next day. I asked him again what he was doing with both my phones in his hand in the middle of the night, and he sheepishly tried to tell me that he was just checking to see if there were any issues on my phone. I snatched my phone from his hands and noticed that he had opened my chats on the old phone. A realization struck me like a lightning bolt. I realized that it was Cole who had been deleting my messages, which is why I was not receiving invitations from my friends or family. Meanwhile, He kept insisting that he couldn't sleep and had come out to watch some TV when he stumbled upon my new phone near my bedside table and curiously began going through it. He claimed he was also checking my old phone to see if he could find any bugs that I might have missed. I looked at him blankly and asked him directly if he had been deleting my messages from the phone. Hearing this, Cole became agitated and vehemently denied it, telling me that it was absurd to even ask him such a thing. He insisted that he would never do something like that. However, despite his denial, I couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that something wasn't right. I pointed out to him that he was clearly going through my messages in the middle of the night, so he had no stance to deny it. I could not comprehend why on earth he would do something like that to me. I told him that because he was deleting my messages, I was unable to meet up with my friends or my family. It felt like a betrayal on multiple levels, and I couldn't comprehend why he would sabotage my relationships with my loved ones in such a sneaky manner. I couldn't even bring myself to look him in the eyes anymore. I felt utterly disgusted and decided to trust my gut instincts. I told him that he had crossed a line this time and I needed some space. I began packing my bags, intending to go live with my mother for a while. He pleaded with me not to leave, finally admitting that he had been deleting my messages just so he could spend more time with me. I couldn't comprehend how he could justify such a violation of privacy, especially when I already spent plenty of time with him. Later, when I confided in my mother, she agreed that what he had done was indeed strange. However, she also mentioned that I was fortunate to have a husband who still loved me so deeply after all these years, even if his actions were misguided. Despite her words, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal and unease. My husband kept calling me like a madman and texting me continuously. His messages ranged from apologizing to blaming me for making him think that I was cheating on him. The next few days, I kept my phone switched off and tried to distract myself by helping my mom around her house. I don't know why, but on one hand, I knew something was wrong with Cole, but on the other hand, I didn't know what to do about it. It was like I was too dense to even admit the truth to myself. Luckily, Kylie showed up to comfort me. She was just as disturbed as I was to know about what her brother had been doing to me. Now, I know a lot of you might think that she would obviously support her brother because they are related by blood, but Kylie is totally a girl's girl. She assured me that what I was feeling was completely normal because no husband should wake up in the middle of the night to check on their wife's phone and react the way Cole did when I have never done anything for him to be this suspicious. She agreed that something was up and promised to investigate by talking to him. I did feel much better after talking to her and hoped that she could make Cole see some sense. I did switch on my phone after talking to Kylie, as I felt a lot better. However, I was bombarded with angry text messages from Cole. He sounded like a different person, and in some of his messages, he had even threatened divorcing me and leaving me with nothing, just like my dad had left me. This was totally out of character for him, and I just couldn't understand what it is that I did to make him so angry. I also noticed that there were no new messages that day, so I chalked it up to maybe he had realized his mistake and was feeling apologetic. I hoped he would eventually call me, and we could sort it out. However, 2 days later, Kylie called me to let me know that she had some news, and I might not like it. When she came over, she looked furious and showed me pictures on her phone taken outside of Cole's place. In the pictures, a young blonde woman was entering our home. I could not understand what it meant, which was when Kylie told me that Cole had been cheating on me. Felt like all my breath was knocked out of my lungs. I just shook my head as Kylie continued to tell me that she had watched this girl for the past 2 days going in and coming out of Cole's place and suspected that her brother was having an affair. My whole body was shaking, and I felt like puking. Kylie tried to hug me, but I shook her off and ran into my washroom. The world around me was spinning, and I could feel a dull throb in my head. I kept thinking that this just could not be true and that maybe there was a simpler explanation for this. I came out of the washroom, and Kylie had a worried expression on her face. My mother, who had been caught up by Kylie about what my husband had done, looked at me with a furious expression. I tried to laugh it off and tell them that it was probably a housekeeper or one of Cole's co-workers, but the more I tried to explain to them why a young woman looking like that was going to meet my husband while he and I were in the middle of a fight, the more I could see Kylie and my mom looking at me with a pitiful expression that almost made me nauseous. My mom gently made me sit down, but I just kept looking at the floor. Kylie told me how she also wanted to believe that her brother was not cheating, but the evidence suggested otherwise. She then asked me if Cole had contacted me in the past 2 days, and I shook my head. She kept quiet, and what followed next was loads and loads of crying on my part. I can't even begin to write the incredible sadness you feel when you know your marriage is ended. I will say that Kylie and Mom sat right there with me on the floor, comforting me in their own way. When I started to feel a bit better, my mom told me that she was sorry for thinking my cowardly husband could ever change and that she was going to help me find a divorce lawyer. Kylie agreed and told me that she is going to investigate a bit more about this mystery woman, which could potentially help me in my divorce with my husband. I didn't do much except nod. I just wanted to sleep, so they left me to crawl into my bed and pretend like everything was just a big old nightmare. However, like every other person who had been cheated on, I woke up to a dull pain in my chest, and realization slowly struck that the love of my life had cheated on me. Kylie had sent me those pictures of the woman entering our home, so I zoomed in as much as possible to notice how young the woman looked. I could not believe that my pathetic husband, instead of talking to me like a sane person, had decided to hook up with a random person, which made me even more angry. If my husband thought that he could do whatever he wanted and I would just come crawling back to him, then he was in for a big surprise. I was going to file for divorce and take everything that he ever owned. I did talk to my mom, and we started researching about good divorce lawyers in the area so we could set up appointments with them. Kylie would call me whenever she could to check up on me. When I finalized a divorce lawyer, the first thing my lawyer informed me was that we needed to hire a PI so we could gather as much evidence as possible, which would ensure I got the most out of my divorce. Hiring a PI was pricey, but I didn't mind as long as Cole would learn his lesson to never mess with me. Throughout this time, Cole only messaged me twice, and both times he wrote asking if I was ready to apologize to him. The messages only made me angrier, and there were so many things I wanted to say, but I also knew that saying those things would alert him about the divorce, and I wanted to see his expression when I would hand him the divorce papers. Cole never once bothered showing up to my mom's place because, in his head, he still believed that the way he reacted about my phones was completely justifiable. Meanwhile, my lawyer informed me that the PI was gathering a lot of good evidence, and Cole's relationship with this young woman seemed serious as they met up literally every day. This made us believe that she was not some random hookup and perhaps they had been having an affair for a long time. Kylie also found out, after hours of internet sleuthing, that this young woman was named Georgina, who was just 23 years old. The most shocking thing was that this woman had a record and was wanted in another state because she had been involved in car theft as a youngster while working for a gang. This meant that my husband had been having an affair with a potential criminal, which was incredibly disturbing to learn. Georgina worked as a stripper currently, so no doubt she must have lied about her past to everyone. Kylie and I talked, and we both agreed that this was a serious matter that Cole needed to know the truth about. We decided to have a secret meeting with my in-laws without Cole finding out, where I told them about everything that had been going on. At first, Cole's parents, who didn't even know that we were having marital problems, were surprised to hear this. They told me how Cole had been lying to them for weeks, telling them everything was fine at home. Kylie also showed them pictures of Georgina, and we had further evidence of what the PI had gathered. Cole's parents were furious that their own son could do something so despicable. Cole's mom hugged me and assured me that they had my back and they were absolutely disgusted that their son had decided to have an affair with a criminal stripper. We all came up with a plan to catch him red-handed, where his parents could have an intervention and I could hand him the divorce papers. My birthday was in a few days, so his parents took the reins and called Cole right there to insist that he should throw a big celebration for me, his wife, this year so we could all celebrate it together. Cole tried to sly his way out by nonchalantly saying how I probably would not like a big celebration, hoping that his parents would not find out about what was actually happening in our marriage. But his dad doubled down, saying he had already talked to me, and I had told him how I would absolutely love it. Cole seemed taken aback when his dad mentioned this but eventually agreed to his parents' demand to host a birthday party for me. Throughout all this, he didn't once mention that I wasn't even living with him at this point or that he was involved with another woman. Later, Cole called me, or at least he gave me several missed calls because I refused to pick up. He then sent me a message saying that he would love to throw a birthday party for me and that he was hoping that I could let bygones be bygones by attending for the sake of his parents. I replied back, pretending as if this wasn't the plan all along, and told him how it was really thoughtful of him to do this and that I would happily attend. On the day of my birthday, I had my divorce papers along with pictures from my PI, ready just in case Cole refused to accept his affair. When my mother and I showed up at Cole's place, he didn't bother to hug me and just gave me and my mom a dry smile. We walked in to see that the man had done absolutely nothing to decorate the house for the evening to celebrate my birthday. It looked like a frat place with gray balloons hung randomly around the living room, and the living room looked extremely dirty. I walked into the kitchen to see a pile of dishes that had been kept unwashed. Cole had brought takeaway pizza for the evening, which almost made me chuckle. When his parents showed up, Cole helped them settle down. Every one of us acted like we were none the wiser, waiting for the right opportunity to confront Cole. When Kylie arrived, she came bearing gifts for me, and then we all sat down to dinner, making small talk here and there. We cut my birthday cake, and everyone congratulated me for turning 36. This is when the doorbell rang, and Cole ran to open it. To everyone's shock, he then walked in holding Georgina's hand, who was wearing a skimpy, glittery dress and high heels. Cole ignored me completely and went up to his parents, introducing Georgina and saying how he had been wanting to announce something for a long time and thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Cole then began to loudly say how no one knew, but he had been unhappy in his marriage with me since I abused him emotionally and never took his feelings into consideration, how I would gaslight him and manipulate him and was never a good wife to him. He continued to say how he had found out recently that I had cheated on him when he caught me with another phone, and after confronting me about it, I had walked out on him. He paused for dramatic effect and continued to say that if it wasn't for Georgina, then he could not have survived the last few months of our failing marriage. He said how 6 months ago he had met her, and one thing led to another, which made him realize just how badly I'd been treating him. He continued to announce that since I had left, he and Georgina had been spending more and more time together and recently found out that she was even 2 months pregnant. My eyes widened in shock as this was a new piece of information that I was not ready to learn. I turned to look at Kylie, and her mouth was hanging open in shock as well. Cole then continued to say how I had failed as a woman by not being a good wife to him during our marriage. However, he was lucky enough to find Georgina and hoped that his parents could accept her. My mother, who had been clearly trying to hold her anger in until this moment, finally let her intrusive thoughts win. She got up from her chair and threw a whole glass of Sprite on Cole's face, screaming what a piece of garbage he was. Cole looked shocked while Georgina looked terrified. Kylie then screamed at Cole that his game was up and that we all knew that he had been having an affair with this woman. She continued to tell him everything that she had found out about Georgina, including the fact that she was wanted in another state for stealing cars. I cannot tell you how satisfying it felt to watch my husband lose all color on his face and begin to panic. I knew then that this was my perfect chance to serve him with the papers. I took out the papers from my coat and walked across the table, handing him the papers. I told him triumphantly that I was done, and now that he had publicly admitted to having an affair, I was coming for everything he owned. My mother and I excused ourselves as we watched his parents, and Kylie continued to shout at him. I was done with him and his drama, and I had no intention to stay there any longer. Throughout the car ride, my mom kept telling me how proud she was that she raised a strong woman like me. I have no idea what Kylie and her parents said to Cole, but it must have been bad because he kept calling me and texting me, begging me to talk. I woke up this morning to almost 80 messages where Cole has begged me to come back to him and promised that he is going to change. He says he is ready to go for couples counseling and that if I really loved him, I would not give up so easily. Now, normally I would not think twice, but if you would have asked me last year if I was ever going to divorce Cole, my answer would have been no. However, things have changed, and I know I am on the right path now. While my brain knows the right thing to do, my heart still feels sad for him, especially seeing his gut-wrenching messages, like he can't live without me and how he had always wanted to grow old with me. I can't trust my heart. So Reddit, I'd like to thank you for exposing my husband's double life to his family and finally divorcing him. Update 1. Wow, when I posted this, I did not expect so many people to be this harsh. I have received hundreds of DMs bashing me for even thinking that I could ever forgive this horrible man. I get it, people. I am not gonna go back to Cole. I want y'all to stop being so mean to me now. When I posted this, I admit that I was feeling a bit guilty, so I got carried away. However, now all that guilt is gone, and I won't let my husband's stupid words sway me ever. Also, for those saying that I should just block him, I can't, as my lawyer has advised me to keep all communication channels open until the divorce gets finalized. A lot of you have also pointed out to me how Cole is still lying and that he must have had an affair with this girl, Georgina, or another woman long back, which is why he had become so controlling and possessive in our relationship, and I quite agree with that. However, I have no interest in finding out the truth because, regardless of whether or not it is true, I just want this chapter of my life to be done. Update 2. It's been a few months since my last update. For those asking, I did get an STD test, and I am happy to report that I am clean, so at least I have avoided crisis. Now, coming on to my divorce, it is still dragging on. Cole's lawyer keeps finding excuses to put it off as long as possible, which is extremely frustrating. But me and my lawyer are determined to not give up. Cole's lawyer doesn't want me to claim anything from Cole, but I paid for all the renovations around the house the 3 years I was married to him. I colored and set up his basement so he could have his man cave. I paid for half of his car's loan, and I was the one bringing in groceries every week, so I deserve my share and will make sure that I get it. Kylie and Cole's parents have continued to remain in touch with me. I met up with Kylie last month, and she gave me the happy news that she is engaged. She is going to be married in the coming months and has already invited me to attend. I don't know if I should go because I don't want to meet Cole, but she has insisted that she wants me there to support her on her big day. Kylie also informed me that Cole and Georgina have broken up. Apparently, after that big fiasco on my birthday, Georgina informed him that she had been, in fact, sleeping with multiple men, so there was no guarantee that she was even pregnant with his child. She took off after that with another man. God knows where, perhaps scared that we might call the police on her. Cole has been devastated since then and had been blaming me, but his parents gave him another earful and reminded him that it was all his fault. Honestly, I don't care about his feelings or his breakup, and hopefully, in my next update, I can share happier news. I am planning on talking to Cole's parents, and hopefully, they can help me find a way to get Cole to divorce me as soon as possible so I can move on from all this. Update 3. Okay, guys, I did it. I am divorced. I can't believe that I am finally free. Cole and his lawyer did everything that they could to keep extending our case, but the judge just had enough in the end. Cole agreed to give me everything that I had asked for. It turns out that Cole's parents had another talk with him and threatened to cut him off their inheritance if he didn't finally divorce me and end these months and months of petty fighting. I am so happy, and tonight I have planned to finally go out with my friends and have the time of my life. I have also invited Kylie, so we are all set to have some good times. I would like to thank everyone for keeping up with me and sending me supportive DMs throughout this journey. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Called off my wedding when a hotel manager let slip my bride-to-be was making out with another man. Just days before our wedding. Today was supposed to be my wedding day, the happiest day of my life, getting married to the love of my life. But see, here I am, on this thread, penning down my miserable life. I, 37M, was about to be married to Brianna, 29F, today. I had proposed to her a month ago, and she was elated about it. We have been seeing each other for almost 2 years now, and I felt it was time for us to exchange vows. You see, I'm more of a boring and introverted nerd. If you asked me to plan an event, I would most likely put together the most basic stuff and get done with it. So when she proposed to take charge, I happily handed over my credit card to her. That was my contribution to our wedding. Brianna wanted to hire a wedding planner for the big day. She was involved in every basic detail of the event. I wanted the wedding in a month, but she said it would take at least 3 months to pull off the kind of wedding she wanted. I agreed to have it her way. I met the planner once to seal the deal, and the next time I met them, my world crashed. Brianna shortlisted 2 wedding planners for me to meet and finalize one. We finalized Mira. She was damn good at her business. That was it. I know the preparation was going on. I got busy at work trying to wrap up my work before the wedding. We had planned a week-long honeymoon to Paris, so before that, I had to wind up my work. Brianna used to update me on the progress, and I was cool with that. The planning was going on fine. Then one day Brianna told me that Mira met with an accident and fractured her knees. She was on cast for the next 6 weeks. In her absence, her stepbrother would be stepping in to take care of her work. A few days after this, I asked Brianna if everything was going okay, and she said yes, Mira's brother was handling it well. 2 weeks before our wedding, the venue we had earlier decided had to be canceled due to sudden rain predicted on those dates. It was an outdoor location, so we had to switch to something indoor. They shortlisted the banquet hall of a 5-star hotel. Brianna asked me to spare some time to visit the new venue and write a check to them. I took 2 hours off from my work, picked up Brianna, and drove to the location. Mira was there with her brother. She had recovered from her injuries, but her brother was still handling the arrangements. We 4 were waiting for the manager in charge of the booking to arrive. A few minutes later, a middle-aged woman arrived. She introduced herself as the banquet hall manager and straight went to greet Brianna, saying, "You must be the bride. The glow of your face speaks for itself." Our friends were also saying that Brianna had been glowing ever since I proposed to her. While the wedding could be a reason, there were other factors too. Brianna turned pale on seeing that lady and was cutting her in between. After hugging Brianna, that lady greeted Mira's brother and said, "You're a lucky man to have such a gorgeous woman as your fiancée. No wonder you were unable to take your hands off her." Brianna grinned and intervened. There must have been some misunderstanding. The lady, trying to assure Brianna, said, "Oh, don't be embarrassed. You guys are so much in love and going to be married soon. I run this hotel. I see so many couples making out in the elevator every day, so no big deal for me." Mira sensed the discomfort in the situation and pitched in, but it was too late. She said, "Okay, we were here to discuss the final quotation of the venue." I stood up and left without saying a word. I couldn't sit there pretending nothing had happened. I understood what exactly had been going on there. Brianna ran behind me trying to stop me. I closed the elevator on her face, rushed to the parking lot, and drove off. I could see her chasing my car in the basement. That 15-minute drive to work was the most difficult drive for me. My phone was constantly buzzing with her calls and voicemails. I reached the office but was really not in a condition to work. I requested the reception not to forward any calls or meetings for that day and canceled all the impending ones for the day after. Like hundreds of missed calls from Brianna, I responded it was all about that. That's not how it sounded. There's a misunderstanding. That lady admitted that she might have mistaken me for someone else. She wants to apologize to you. Could you please come and meet her once again? I said, I'm no fool here. She insisted that I meet that woman once again to clear the confusion. I hung up without saying anything. I didn't respond to her after that call. In the evening, I got a call from Mira. She said she was sorry to interfere in our personal matter, but also requested me to meet that woman and see for myself what she had to say. I said, I don't know. I'm not in the right state of mind right now. After thinking a lot about it, I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt and meet that woman. I didn't tell Mira or Brianna about it. The next day, I again went to the hotel and asked for that lady. I was escorted to her cabin, and she apologized to me. She said she might have seen someone else and mistakenly took it for Brianna. I wasn't convinced by her reason. I mean, she could be confused about one person but not both of them. She said, maybe I saw Brianna and that young man together during their site visit. In the next instance, I saw some other couple making out and got confused. I asked her if she could show me the camera footage of the elevator on the day Brianna visited the venue. She suddenly turned pale and stammered her way to say that she couldn't. It was beyond her company's policy to show the camera footage to outsiders. This security policy was understandable, but her behavior was still suspicious to me. I asked her why she was explaining herself and why she needed to be so apologetic. She said she was worried about getting fired from her job if Mira complained of her big mouth behavior to the hotel owner. I mean, the hotel lost its bookings due to her nosiness. I said, look, I don't believe your reason at all, but if you're worried about your job, I can assure you that it won't be affected. I called Mira right in front of that lady and told her I was canceling the booking for the venue and she shouldn't do anything to jeopardize the lady's job. Mira asked me if I had met that woman. I said yes, and she has cleared the confusion from her end, but I still want to call off the wedding, and it has nothing to do with the hotel manager. Mira said, okay, and hung up. That woman thanked me for it. While I was leaving, she asked for my card. I gave it to her. Later in the evening, I got a call from her, and she told me that she had actually seen Brianna with that wedding manager guy, and there was no confusion. She had agreed to lie to me to save her job. Brianna had begged her to lie and even softly threatened her that she would complain to the management about her nosy behavior. I asked her why she is speaking the truth now. She said, I was kind to her, and she wanted me to know the truth because she had a broken house due to a cheating husband. So she understands the pain of betrayal. Fair enough. I didn't tell anyone about this. I'm not that social of a guy. My work keeps me busy. I have a close-knit bond with my siblings, but I didn't tell them or my mom either. Meanwhile, Brianna kept sending me cute texts and selfies. I'm yet to block her or even confront her about the truth, though I understood the truth on the very first meeting with this lady. Meeting her for the second time got me thinking about Brianna's cruelty. I mean, how could she stoop so low to threaten that woman for her job and force her to lie? Now I wonder if I really know the woman I was supposed to be getting married to. Edit. I didn't go home on D-Day. I spent the night at my office. The next day, I met that woman at the hotel, and things became crystal clear. That evening, I called Mira and asked her to come down to my office. When she was here, I told her I wanted to terminate the contract. I was ready to pay whatever it was under their policy and some extra compensation for her loss, but she politely refused it. She charged me whatever was within the contract. She even gave me an extra refund out of empathy, but I think it's her guilt because our life got screwed because of her lowlife brother. She said she would initiate the exit formalities and mail me. It was sorted. Brianna was still texting me, asking me when would I come home and all those loving and caring messages. She flipped when Mira sent the contract termination email. Brianna frantically called me, asking me to come home and talk this out like adults. I responded that she needs to vacate my house and there's nothing left to be talked about. She came down to my office, but I asked my reception desk not to let her inside my cabin and tell her I was busy. I called and asked her to leave. I said I was not in a state to have any rational conversation with her and that she should not bother me for some time. She vacated the house with her essentials but left the car. It was gifted by me on her last birthday. I've been holding myself strongly until now, but today was supposed to be my wedding. Calls from friends and relatives are making it worse. I have switched off my phone from the morning. Update 1. Spent the next week living in a cocoon, limiting my conversation only with my senior staff for work-related stuff. I asked my wedding planner to do me a favor and send the cancellation email to all the guests who were invited. That led to a flooding of calls and texts from pretty much everyone. My side of people were worried about me. Her family and friends were behind me for reconciliation. Brianna was still telling everyone that I had called off the wedding over some stupid misunderstanding. I let it be. After a week of sulking and brooding over my sorrows, I had to move my ass to work. I don't have the luxury of just moving out of the city and disappearing like others I read on this subreddit. I wish I had that luxury. Now I'm cursing myself for even trying to get into this love shit. Gladly I've been away from all these for so long. I should have been that way. My friends were right in saying I'm late for the wedding bells. It has to do with my family setup. My dad passed away when I was in college final year, leaving his manufacturing business to me. I have a sister and a younger brother. My sister was in freshman year when Dad passed, and my brother was still in high school, so eminently everything came to me. Our business was not sort of a multinational level that could operate with the board and trustees without the owner's presence. It's a mid-sized manufacturing business where someone needs to actually run the show to survive. I was quick to jump into the boat and take it over. We had no other option. We had a house mortgage and a college education to fund for my siblings and support my mom. She is not a working woman. I worked hard to learn the business and tried to scale it up. I was so worked up for all these years that my love life had been for a toss. I had a few flings here and there, but nothing got serious, not even casual relationships. Mostly it was one-night stands. I met Brianna 2 years back at a common friend's party. She was so bubbly and cheerful that I couldn't take my eyes off her. We started off a casual fling and didn't realize when I fell for her. She should get a lot of credit for putting up with my busy schedule. She had been patient and accommodating of my work commitments. That's why when she said she wanted a wedding of her choice, I readily agreed. She deserved to have a dream wedding. That's what I thought until now. I haven't told a lot of people the reason for our wedding fallout. Mom and siblings knew, and for the rest of others, they don't need to know. Brianna showed up at my mom's, thinking she didn't know the truth. She requested Mom to help us reconcile. Out of respect, Mom didn't spill the truth and said she would ask me to call her. I didn't want to, but Mom convinced me to have closure. It's necessary to even move on. All the hows and whens need to be answered. I'm not sure if I really need closure or if I have moved on without that. I'll do it if I feel the need to have the answers. Edit 1. I have canceled the honeymoon bookings we had for Paris. It was insurance covered, so I got the refund, pretty much except for the flight booking. I canceled it last moment. Edit 2. People calling her a gold digger, please don't use that word. I don't want to put all sorts of labels on her because she cheated. She cheated, and I called off the wedding. That's it. I don't want to be disrespectful towards her unnecessarily. Update 2. Brianna showed up at my door last day. I knew she eventually would. If this was earlier, I might have got a restraining order against her, but now I think my anger has subsided. The pain is still there, but I think now I was ready to at least listen to her. I let her in. She wanted to hug me, but I blocked her. Before she started speaking, I said, I know the truth, so better not manipulate. She went numb for some time and said, I'm here to confess, and went on to say, the cheating was never intended, but it just happened. One thing led to another. When Mira injured her knee, I was terrified about the whole arrangement and also kind of annoyed. Her brother, Aaron, took over her work, and I kind of got more involved to make everything seamless. For the first 2 to 3 times, I didn't even notice him that closely. Our conversation was very transactional. Only when we went for the wedding dress trial and the way he meticulously selected everything for me to match my taste and elegance did I notice him. He was just being extra nice and sweet to me. I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. I kind of fell for his flirtatious comments about my beauty and features. Unknowingly, I was seeking validation from him. It was so flattering. I couldn't resist myself. She broke down, bawling out her lungs. I asked her when they crossed the limits. She asked if I really wanted to know all the details. I said yes. She said, when we went to visit the hotel venue, Aaron picked me up. I was floored by his chivalry. In the car, he was trying to touch me, but I didn't reciprocate it, but we eventually made out in the elevator. That's when that manager saw us. Coincidentally, she saw us again when we were leaving the hotel. We were making out again. I asked her if it was just that. She stammered, no. Then we booked a room in the same hotel and had it 2 to 3 times. It suffocated me so badly that I had to get up and take a tour to the front porch to gasp some air. Was that all? She said, yes, and then on the next day, that lady at the hotel spilled out the truth. Brianna was also choking because of heavy breathing. I realized her guilt was giving her tough times. She looked pathetic. She kept crying and apologizing. I couldn't hold back my tears. She held my arms and asked if there was the slightest chance of getting back together. I said no. She let Aaron sleep with her because he complimented her generously. It was such a cheap deal for her. I cannot trust someone so shallow. I mean, if her reason is that his flattering compliments lured her into his pants, then there could be so many areas where I faltered, and others are good at that. I'm busy at work. I'm not that romantic kind of person. I'm introverted and not very good at giving compliments. This means every time she meets a guy who has these qualities which I don't, she would cheat. She said I was indirectly calling her a whore. I said I'm not putting any label on her but speaking the facts. She has never cheated on me for all these years. And she had never found me incompetent and said my love was just enough for her. I wish it was, but it's not. I don't want to live in a constant feeling of insecurity and incompetence that she might meet someone better and screw everything again. There were several rounds of breakdowns, crying, and apologizing for hours. I realized it was not working. It was getting worse for both of us, especially me. I was getting weak and falling for her tears, so I showed my backbone and stood up to leave and told her I had packed and kept her remaining stuff in the garage. She didn't say anything and kept sobbing. I came back after an hour and she was gone. I checked the garage. She had taken her stuff. I feel lighter after that. Indeed, closure helped in my case. I didn't think I needed it, but glad I listened to my mom and gave it a shot. Update 3. This is mostly going to be my last update. Might delete the account later. Updating here has helped me clear my head and move on. Thanks to everyone who made me feel I'm not alone in this. I have unblocked Brianna, but I've also made it clear that we are not going to be together. She understands that now and doesn't bother me. She also confessed the truth to her parents, who then called me to apologize. After I canceled the wedding, they were literally threatening to hunt me down. After knowing the truth, they were sorry about that. I said it was fine and understandable. I have no harsh feelings for them now that my anger has subsided. I feel maybe I too have a role to play in this cheating. I need to work on expressing my feelings and letting my loved ones know how much I love them. Communication has been my problem. I love my family and would give my legs and arms for them, but rarely have I told them that I love them. Same for Brianna. I loved her more than anything else but was not generous in expressing that feeling. She's the prettiest woman I have seen yet. I didn't tell her this enough. I'm not justifying her cheating at all. Neither am I planning any reconciliation, but I feel this to be my incompetence. I've scheduled an appointment with a therapist and looking forward to working on this aspect of my personality. I don't wish for any serious relationship now, not least in the near future. Heartbreak is hard. It's damn hard. Thanks for reading this and engaging on my post. Appreciate all the comments, good and bad. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My wife and I plan to learn French together in France after saving for years and moving there. I discovered she was cheating on me with a classmate. My wife and I used to be best friends before we married. We both met in college, but we became close friends about 3 years after we left college. My wife was going through a very tough season when our friendship started. She had recently lost her father to cancer, and around the same time, she caught her best friend with her fiancé. I can't explain how we got so close, but I remember we started talking one day and never stopped. For 2 years, we were best friends and told each other stuff. I was always happy to have her around because I loved her aura. She was always so energetic, and her laughter was heart-melting. Aside from this, my wife and I were very much alike. We had similar passions, loved the same sports, and had similar hobbies. It was almost like we were born to be with each other. As time passed, I realized I had fallen in love with my wife, so I boldly asked her out, and she said yes. We ended up dating for 10 months, and we married. Being married to my wife was fun initially because we were always eager to explore and try new things together. She has a very open mind and would jump on any idea I had. We didn't have any kids yet, but we made a solid plan to have kids after 3 years. While my wife worked as a secretary in a big pet store, I was a mechanic and worked in a car brand company. We were both actively planning for our future and a particular vision from when we dated. While we were dating, my wife and I agreed to learn at least 3 different languages before we grew old, and the first language on our list was French. We could have simply downloaded a language app, learned on YouTube, or taken an online language class, but my wife insisted that we travel to France to learn the language, feel the culture, and be in a class where a native French speaker would teach us. It sounded like a great idea, and since we loved to explore, we started saving towards it for 2 years. We put money aside every month for our France trip, and when we believed it was enough, we made our trip. It was our first time being in France, so you could imagine we were like children who had been to Disneyland for the first time. We loved everything we saw, and being around people who spoke French constantly motivated us to be serious about learning the language. We started classes the same week since we had already checked out the school we wanted to enroll in before traveling to France. We were in a class of about 15 people who also wanted to learn the language, and it was so much fun. Our class was only meant to be for 3 months. My wife believed 3 months of learning directly from a French native would help us learn the basics of the language and speak it, and she was right. Living in an environment of majorly French speakers helped too. For the 3 months we lived in France, we had so much fun and enjoyed our stay there. We also had the opportunity to relate and mix up with other people and made a couple of friends. My wife was a very social butterfly, and she made friends like it was nothing. She even had more friends in our class than I did, and I didn't mind. I knew it was her personality and trying to find more people to practice the language with. Well, I was wrong. My wife had been involved with something way higher than trying to practice the language with her new friends. Towards the end of our class, it was mandatory for everyone to take an examination, and we had successfully entered that phase. One day, while my wife and I were in our short-let apartment preparing for our exams that afternoon, her phone buzzed. She had left her phone on one of her textbooks and went into the room to sort out what she'd wear later. When I looked at her phone screen, I saw that the message was written in French, and I was impressed that my wife had reached the extent of getting messages in French. So to test my French reading skills, I read the message to see if I could understand it, and that worked to a level. I couldn't understand the whole message because there were words that confused me. Meanwhile, I had understood something in the message that looked suspicious, so to be sure of what I had read, I used a language translator and was perplexed at what I read. Through translating the messages into English, I discovered that my wife was having an affair with one of our classmates. He had been her seat partner a couple of times, and they got along well. Not just that, they were also planning to cheat in the exam and also cheat on me afterward. By that, I mean sleep together. I was so mad, and I felt betrayed. I could not even believe that my wife was having an affair with someone she barely knew for 3 months, and she chose to destroy our marriage and the memories and sabotage every plan we made for our future. After I got a grip on myself, I snapped the message with my phone, and immediately after I did that, my wife walked into the living room. I tried to control my emotions like most men said they did on this channel, but I couldn't. It was eating me up inside, and before I knew it, I confronted her and yelled at her. She tried to lie that there was nothing going on between them and that maybe I had misinterpreted the message, so I showed her the English translation, and she kept quiet. After staying silent for a few minutes, she said she could explain and was only trying to explore and have fun. I nearly exploded when she said that, but I had to stay calm and walk out of the apartment immediately. I left the house. I went straight to our school, and I showed the text message to the person I knew was in charge. When the text message reached the right people, all the previous exams my wife and her affair partner had written were automatically canceled, and since we had a couple more papers left before I returned to our country, I had to stay with one of the new male friends I made there till I wrote my last paper. After my last paper, I returned home before my wife. I avoided her the whole time we were in France, and I didn't take any of her calls or listen to the numerous voicemails she sent. When she returned home, she had met all her things on the front porch. Even at that, she still tried to beg me, and she claimed she and her app had not done anything serious except kisses. At that point, I didn't care if they had done anything serious. Her intentions were all that mattered. We eventually divorced, but before we went our separate ways, my results came out and I aced it. As for my wife and her affair partner, they were told they could retake the class if they wanted, but that would be at the expense of another fee. She couldn't take another class because it took us 2 years to collaboratively gather that money and pay for our accommodation. It still hurts when I remember how we were so in love with each other, our plans, and the kind of life we were building, but it's all for the best for me. Being single is better than being with a woman who jumps on any man she gets close to. I know I have moved on, but it will take a long time to trust a woman or date one. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My pregnant wife shut me out of everything and favored my daughter from my last marriage. I finally snapped and said horrible things. Turns out, she feared being my family and compared herself to my ex. I, 30M, and my wife, 26F, have been together for 4 years. I have a 5-year-old from a previous relationship. My 5-year-old, Leah, is from my first long-term relationship during college. We split shortly after her birth as my then-partner admitted to being unfaithful and not being ready to start a family. My daughter loves my wife. They are inseparable. My ex does not have much to do with my daughter or myself, except to cause the occasional drama. She did not want any custody or visitation time, so my wife is her mother for all intents and purposes. My wife is almost 8 months pregnant. She has shut me out of the entire pregnancy but refuses to admit anything is wrong. I feel completely ignored and hurt. When we first learned she was pregnant, she told me while I was making breakfast. Of course, I was elated. However, since it was an unplanned pregnancy, I asked how she was feeling. At first, she began smiling and crying about how excited she is. I picked her up, gave her a million kisses, and told her I was so excited to have a baby, too, and what a wonderful mother she would be. All good, right? She went all out to announce it to everyone else, balloons and boxes, t-shirts and best big sister mugs. I assumed the casual announcement with me was because she wanted my feelings on growing our family before celebrating. However, when her sister asked about how I liked my box, my wife quickly said, "He didn't get one. This isn't his first rodeo." It was like pulling teeth to get her to let me go to the ultrasound appointments. She didn't want me to miss work, didn't want to interrupt Leah's routine, excuse after excuse. When it came to listening to the heartbeat, my wife instantly started crying, happy tears. The tech was telling her how strong the heartbeat was, how precious our little one was, etc. I was feeling a bit emotional and cleared my throat to prevent crying. The tech said, "A dad, isn't that sound beautiful?" My wife immediately said, "This isn't his first child. It's not that special for him." I immediately said, "This is one of the most important moments of my life. I can't think of anything more special." The atmosphere was clearly awkward. Another thing that bothered me. I heard Leah and my wife's mom laughing in the living area. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in and asked what the fuss was about. Leah was touching my wife's stomach and was laughing with excitement that the baby was moving and it would be so cute. My wife let my daughter and mom feel the baby move before me. I was hurt but simply said how happy I was. Later that night, my wife was poking her belly and laughing. I asked her to let me feel as well, and she said, "You felt Leah move as a baby. What can be better than that? She was the cutest baby ever." She has felt pretty poorly throughout her pregnancy but refuses to let me help her. If I bring her a snack and drink, she offers it to our daughter. If I try and rub her feet or legs, she asks me to play with our daughter so she doesn't feel like she is being replaced or ignored. I simply do not ignore my daughter. We have bonding time. I'm an active parent, but I want to love my wife. She can hardly eat, but when I ask her what I can prepare for her, it's whatever Leah wants. We went to the zoo with Leah, and my wife started feeling bad. She had cramps and was considering going to the hospital, severe nausea and dizziness. I carried her to a bench nearby, and she began to cry, saying she can't even stand up. I told her, "Let me call an ambulance, or I'll carry you to the car and drive you." She said she didn't want to ruin Leah's trip, and we didn't even make it to the aviary, Leah's favorite part. I said I wasn't leaving. When she asked me to continue to go through the zoo with Leah, we sat for a while until her dad showed up. She didn't even tell me he was coming, and he took her to the doctor. I was shocked and followed them with Leah. When we arrived, Leah was upset about missing the aviary and pouting. At that point, the health of my wife and unborn child were my concern. I really didn't care Leah was upset. My wife was irate that I made Leah miss out. Another example, we were watching Leah play in a local kids' sport. I asked her, "Do you think our kid will be athletic, artistic, enjoy science, or math?" She said, "This is Leah's moment. We shouldn't make it about someone who isn't even here." Leah was on the field, we were sitting in the stands. We had both waved to her, held up a sign for her. Everything. I just wanted to talk about our baby. When her bump was really showing, she would always show it off to anyone who wanted to look. Her family, friends, siblings, etc. "Do you want to see my bump? I'm huge. So excited. I can't believe it's only X more weeks." They all touch her bump, talk to it, etc. Her parents come and read or tell back in the day stories. They go to the beach. 1,000 bump pictures posted on her friend's social media account. So ready to be an honorary auntie. Her sister. Wife puts the B in bump in beautiful. If we go out together, she wears the loosest clothes so I don't see it. I'll even see her pull her shirt down when she sees me come into the room. She sat on me the other day after being playful in bed. Her bump was right in my face. I ran my hands up it and said, "You are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You already are a great mom to Leah. I can't wait to see you as our family grows." This was one of the first times I was really able to feel her bump, so I rested my hand there and said, I love you so much already. I'm so excited to meet you. I hope you have your mom's eyes. She moved off of me and said, I know. My ex-partner had a bigger bump than me. I bet it was fun seeing Leah move all the time. You don't have to act like you care. I know you've done this before. I said, I don't think about it that way. Leah is special. But this is a completely new and different special because it's with you, and our baby was someone completely new and special. She began to leave the room, and I could see her shoulders shake from crying. I am 100% positive she is not cheating, nor has she ever. I just cannot wrap my head around why she doesn't want me to be happy about this. The rest of the time is completely normal as long as I don't mention the baby. She is affectionate, initiates intimacy, brags about what a good husband I am and how great I've made this pregnancy. We plan for our future, have date nights, everything else. Unfortunately, we had a fight where I snapped. I had a break between clients at work, so I went to a local baby store and got a lot of things she had planned for the baby's nursery on her Pinterest board. I came home and surprised her with flowers, a prenatal massage certificate, and her favorite food, as well as the baby items. She seemed very grateful. Editor's note: when Opie got home after going back to work again, the items were no longer there. She said she returned them to buy Leah stuff as she was going to feel left out. I lost it. I cried for the first time in our marriage and yelled that having a child with her was the worst mistake I've ever made. That at least my deadbeat ex at least gave me the chance to know my unborn child. That I didn't care about the baby because she wouldn't even let me bond with it. I do care. I have since told her that I hope she was as miserable as she made me and that she better be prepared for a custody dispute. She is AS for Leah. She simply said, I know you don't care about the baby, but I'll die before you take my baby from me. What I have begged her to let me interact with her/our baby. I asked her if her therapist had any insight onto why she was being like this. She said no, that she isn't doing anything. I told her what I said above, and she said I had those experiences already, so it shouldn't matter. I asked her if the baby was mine. I know it is. I was just being mean. She threw her phone at me and said, yes, go through it. I'll do a paternity test, whatever you need. I called her parents and asked them to go to our house as we were having a disagreement and went to a hotel. I do not want to stress her or our unborn child, and I really want to repair this, but I truly don't know how. I'm staying at an Airbnb for now until we can figure this out, but I truly don't know what to do. I miss her like crazy, and I can't even begin to understand why she wants to behave this way. I have apologized for what I said, but I can't take back what I said, and I worry about when our baby is born if she will even want to be a family with me or let me have anything to do with our baby. I spoke with a mutual friend who says she is very distraught and says she can't be a single mom. Loves me, but her actions prove the opposite time and time again, even when I beg for change. Comment 1. Why did you say those things? Oop. I said those things because I wanted to hurt her like she has been hurting me. It's as simple as that. I regret it. I have apologized. She has told me time and time again, you shouldn't care, and I told her whatever I thought I could to hurt her. It was childish and immature of me, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. I hadn't planned on saying any of that. Comment 2. Yeah, I can understand why you're angry. Has she explained why she has been saying those things? Resentment is a weird thing. She may not have even realized she had that until she became pregnant, but I do think that if that was something she'd been feeling, that it's something she should have spoken to either you or your therapist about. Opie, nothing. I've begged her to talk to me about it. I've told her we can go to counseling together, and guess what her response was? She cried and asked if I was unhappy in our marriage. I said no, I want to be more involved with you in this pregnancy. You've left me in the dark. I asked if she was unhappy. Did she want a divorce? She cried, said she doesn't want this baby. More tears. Seemed genuinely hurt. I would even think that makes no sense in my mind. Apparently, I should just stand on the sidelines. Comment 3. Is it possible she's resentful of your 5-year-old? What's your relationship with Leah's mother like? Opie. I truly don't think she is resentful. She adores my 5-year-old, and I think she is probably the preferred parent. She takes her to the park, museums, mommy and me painting, shows up to school events, muffins with mom, etc. without fail. Takes care of her when she's sick, plans our vacations out around my 5-year-old's interests. Her cousin had said something about not bringing her stepdaughter before, and my wife completely freaked and said that we don't use titles around here that make us feel like we aren't one family. She is my daughter and nothing less and will not be excluded, type thing. When she was first pregnant, we took a short trip to see some of her family, and she cried every day about missing Leah. She is in therapy and has been since we met for anxiety and depression, but it is clearly no help. I have brought up prenatal depression at her doctor's appointment, but she really doesn't match if she is elated unless I specifically bring up the baby. Downvoted comment about seeing an attorney because he probably won't be allowed at the birth and they should just get divorced. It's definitely a fear in the back of my mind. I know Leah will be devastated. My wife already mentioned wanting her mom in the delivery room since I've already seen my kid being born, that it would only serve to embarrass her if I'm in the room this time. Comment 4. You two need couples therapy immediately. You should have started it after her first or second comment. You've known for months things weren't right. Also, call her OB and explain what's going on. Ask them to make a record of her shift in behavior and stress that she's never done anything like this before getting pregnant. OP. I should have. I stupidly attributed it to hormones and other issues that come with pregnancy. She was sick for most of her pregnancy and for a lot of it actually lost weight, was constantly hungry but couldn't eat, and became very body conscious. She is doing much better now and is a healthy weight, and I genuinely thought it would get better. It's much easier to see in hindsight that the first few comments were deeper than that. Comment 5. Why did you say all that? She was acting really off for sure, but you really upped that some awful, very possibly unforgivable stuff you just said, and you seemed like such a decent guy. Opie, I am an idiot. I did up and I have apologized. Not that it means much to her at this point. I said whatever I could say to hurt her. It was months of resentment building up, months of begging for her to tell me what's going on, to let me in, to let me think of baby names with her. I was, and I still am, hurt. I hope it can be repaired as I would like to be there for her and be a full-time father to my child. It breaks my heart to think of splitting custody time. Update 1. It's been about a month since I posted this. This is a bit long because so many kind Redditors reached out and gave me advice and shared their experiences and asked for an update. After I posted and stewed for a little while and had a couple of drinks, I called my Phil. He and my wife are very close, and I respect his opinion. He has been married for a very long time and seems to have a happy marriage and good relationships all around with his family. I didn't specify what issues we were having, but he was over at my house while I was staying in an Airbnb, so it was no secret we were having problems. He has more of a traditional marriage and at some point asked what I had to lose by putting pressure on her to talk. I said I feared I would push her away more, and he pretty much told me that I was living in a separate house than my pregnant wife, freaking out about a potential divorce. What did I have to lose? He advised me to be a man and come back to my house and lay it on the line. I told him I'd be coming over the next day. They asked if they could take Leah to buy some sparklers for the upcoming holiday and spend the night at their house. I agreed, and when I went to my house the next day, I came in with flowers and stuff to make dinner. My wife asked what I was doing there, to which I replied, I live there and would like to sit down and talk. I gave a long apology for my actions and words. When I finished, I said it was her turn to tell me what was going on. She tried to claim nothing, that everything was okay. After a while, I said, my heart is broken that we have been through some tough things together, fought for each other, and now you sit here and lie to my face. We both sat there, and she cried for about 30 minutes until eventually she said she felt like our relationship would end if she was honest. I said I would hear her out no matter what. She admitted it was hard that this would be her first kid and not mine. She didn't think it would bother her, and it didn't until she was pregnant, and that she laid in bed at night thinking if my ex would have wanted to raise Leah, we would still be a family together and she wouldn't matter. She expressed that seeing me emotional about our baby or wanting to touch her bump or treat her made her think of me and my ex and how I had already did all of the things she was excited to do with me near the beginning of her pregnancy. She had told a close friend that she couldn't wait to have a baby with her soulmate, and her friend replied that she didn't think soulmates had other children or baby mamas, that it was two people meant only for each other. She was very upset and asked if I thought we were soulmates like she did. She described herself and our unborn child as my sloppy seconds family, That no one grew up dreaming of having kids by multiple different people. That she was just the substitute when the family I wanted didn't work out. She also shared she had found some old images of my ex on social media and could not stop comparing her pregnant body. She feared the baby wouldn't be an equal to Leah in my eyes. It worried her I would ask what she thought the baby would be like, that what if the baby was disabled or didn't like to do the things we enjoyed as a family, or the baby and Elle didn't like each other. She said at one point she found herself wishing I had never had Leah so she wouldn't have to worry as much, and that is when she knew she had to really put in the extra effort to maintain a relationship with Leah. She feared that between work and Leah, I wouldn't have time and wouldn't bond with the baby like in the articles she read online where fathers didn't bond with their children until they were able to do things with the family. When I did try and bond with the baby, she worried the baby wouldn't live up to Leah. I have never been shy about saying how much being a father means to me and how raising Leah has been the highlight of my life, along with marrying my wife and now having our child together. She said it was initially what made her confident in marrying me and excited to have a big family with me, but now constantly wondered if her pregnancy and this baby would be a highlight or a burden for me because the stress is the same but the newness wasn't. And then what if a newborn and then toddler wouldn't be as interesting to me as Leah, who is capable of doing activities. She showed me a million articles of different men explaining they didn't bond with their children until 4+ years old. She also showed me the videos where people say things they did with their first kid and then get more relaxed as they have more children. She said it freaked her out because it was clear people stopped caring the more children they had. She said that there were times she felt she was ruining our family and coming between me and Leah, for example, at the zoo. She said she cried on the way to the hospital. She was afraid Leah would hate her and resent the baby for cutting our zoo time short, and that I would be upset that I was spending my time off work at the hospital instead of doing the activities we planned with Leah while I work. Leah and my wife spend a lot of time out of the house. Library, local parks, etc. One of their favorite activities is biking together, and we bike together on weekends as well. We have lots of local trails, but due to her pregnancy, she has not been able to. We've been doing more indoor activities. My wife said that when I'm at work, Leah kept saying she hated her because she didn't get to go on her new bike as often anymore. I said I would discuss it with her because that is unacceptable. My wife asked me not to since there would be so many changes soon for Leah and it hurt her because she missed biking together as well. A couple of months ago, my wife asked me and Leah if we wanted to read stories together. Leah chose the first story I read and my wife chose the second, her favorite childhood story, for me to read to the baby and Leah since it helps promote brain activity and help with bonding. After that, I read another book of Leah's choosing. While I was at work the next day, Leah ripped the pages out of the book my wife chose. She said she was going to tell me, but her friend, same friend who says we aren't soulmates, said I would think she was making it up and that it seemed to her she was trying to come between me and Leah. I asked her why she didn't tell me any of this, and she explained that she didn't feel comfortable telling me because her thoughts didn't even make sense to her. She wanted me to spend time with Leah so she didn't feel left out or jealous, and when I did, she felt upset I wasn't spending more time with her. She loves Leah but wishes we had our first kid together. She wants me around but also feels upset and guilty when I give her/our unborn baby attention. She said she feared that I would think she was trying to come between me and Leah when she wasn't. By the time I realized something was truly wrong and started to ask what was wrong, if she needed therapy, etc. She said she realized she was acting poorly but didn't want to admit to herself that she missed out on a lot with me and doubled down as it was hard to face that she made her fears reality by pushing me away and not letting me care and that she couldn't start over. That her first pregnancy was a somewhat bad experience because of her own actions. At this point, I realized how terrible I had been. I apologized for making her feel like she couldn't come to me about anything. She said when she researched her feelings, she found a bunch of forums where people were calling the poster evil for their feelings about their stepchild and feared I would feel the same. She said if I had told her I felt about Leah the way she felt about Leah that it would make her angry and upset, so she couldn't see how I wouldn't be. We both cried for a long time. I tried to reassure her. I told her how much I loved her, how excited I was that she was the family of my choosing and my soulmate, that the universe knew that Leah and I needed her, which is why circumstances allowed us to be a family. She apologized for the way she treated me and said she wanted to make it right. She said she had wanted to apologize when I was beginning to have my meltdown but was surprised when I yelled and realized she might have messed up beyond repair to get that reaction from me. We continued to cry for a long time and asked if I wanted to feel the baby. Of course, I said yes, and we cried even more. Turned out to be a great evening. I made us dinner, and we laughed about how I was so stressed I went to Reddit for advice. She wanted to read the post and cried again when she did. I reassured her we could move past this, and she said she felt less horrible as she read some of the comments from women in her shoes. It was a bit awkward the first week after so many months of tension. I knew things were turning around when she woke me up by whispering, "Baby wants blueberry pancakes." That's Saturday. I don't think I've ever prepared pancakes so fast. I couldn't keep the smile off my face. We ended up going to a pool party a few days later, and she let me choose her swimsuit, a big deal for someone who only wore baggy clothes around me. We took family pictures, and the universe is clearly on my side because on the way home she asked me to feel her belly, and our baby was hiccuping, something I had never felt before, and it was a first we could share together. She has even let me help her when she is sick without making an excuse about Leah. I've learned that when she comes and puts her back to me and lifts her arm, that is my cue to lift her belly up. I now spend a lot of time rubbing and talking to her belly and rubbing her feet, legs, back, shoulders, hips. Haha. She is sore everywhere at this point. The first 500 times it made me cry. It has been such a relief to be involved. I never thought being tasked with acquiring the most random food items at 2 a.m. would be a great time for me. But it is. It still sucks that I missed out on a lot. I think it sucks for her too. She gets emotional and says a weight has been lifted off of her, and things are so much easier, and she is upset that she didn't talk to me sooner. I've been working to fix some of my wife's guilt. I realized there was a lot of simple fixes. For example, I was able to go to my local bike shop and get a pull-behind trailer. Now I pull her in that, and she can use a small fan and ice packs, and Leah can ride her bike. I have taken off work so I can spend more time with them both. We are all in therapy, and thankfully Leah's therapist is continuing to say she is securely attached to both of us, enjoys the time we spent together, is coping very well. Some of her behavior was due to another situation which we have resolved, and she is excited to be a big sister. My wife was terrified that maybe she could sense her attitude shift, but her therapist says that she only has one complaint about my wife, that she forgot her candy one time, and then it took 32 whole minutes for the store to deliver it. My wife is in therapy working to overcome the negative feelings she has. That is pretty much where we are now. We are getting very close to baby time and working hard to finish preparing. My wife still needs reassurance. There are a lot of times she brings up my ex, and I've found bringing up our first helps. For example, she will ask about certain things and how it was for me. I'll say I don't want to talk about that and steer the conversation to us. Do you remember our first house? First vacation? First kiss? Date? Remember that time blah blah? It made me fall more in love with you. Do you remember when you and Leah made me blah? That is still one of my prized possessions. It upsets me that my wife suffered for so long. I believe saying it out loud took a lot of power away from her feelings. I think most people know how badly it feels when you have thoughts that don't feel like your own when you're going through a mentally taxing time. I really should have stood up for our relationship and her mental health way sooner. I accepted her brushing me off for far too long when I should have realized she needed help. I appreciate everyone who reached out or offered advice. I posted this in detail with my wife's permission. She hopes that it helps someone out there struggling with the same feelings she felt. TLDR. My wife was facing insecurity and some mental health issues and did not feel she could reach out to me as they involved my bio daughter. Thankfully, we received great advice from my Phil and you all, and we spoke about it and worked it out. After some awkward times, things are somewhat back to normal, and I am able to be involved in my wife's pregnancy. Everyone, including Leah, is doing well and excited for the baby to arrive. Comment where Opie replied, I wonder how is your wife moving forward regarding her friend? Seems she didn't even consider having these insecurities before she had a snake in her ear. Opie, we have disinvited this friend from our home. It's hard to cut her out as she is part of my wife's larger friend group. My wife was unsure as this friend has gone through some hard things lately. However, recently my wife hosted a girls' night, and her friends were arriving as I was leaving. I told her she looked beautiful and wished them a good time. When I arrived back, my wife told me this friend said in front of the whole group that I may be saying kind things to her now, but after some changes after birth I won't describe here, I will be after her. My wife said that was an unkind and untrue thing to say, and she said it was a joke. I made it very clear to my wife that I did not want her around as we are in an emotionally vulnerable time and this person clearly does not wish us well, and she agreed. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Ex-drug addict girlfriend stole $2,000 from his parents' safe and turned the whole family against our daughter. Now I'm helping my kid recover after they all chose a criminal over her. This situation is long and messy, so I'll try to include the relevant info only. I, 32F, broke up with my longtime partner, 33M, right before COVID hit. We stayed in the same house during lockdown and continued to live together after lockdown was lifted because we generally get along and we had a child, 11F, to raise together. Over the last 3 years we've been roommates and co-parents, and that's it. One day he was supposed to take our daughter to buy new school clothes, and she came back 10 minutes later in tears. She said they were on their way to the store when his new girlfriend called, and he drove her back home and dropped her off so he could go spend time with her. He even asked our daughter to lie to me for him, but she was tired of covering for him, implying she'd been lying for him for a while now. When he got home, we had a massive argument. I didn't care if he dated other girls. I cared that, for some reason, he thought he had to sneak around, and it made him act like a jerk to me and our daughter. I told him if he had been a man about this new girl and just introduced me to her, then maybe we could have all been friends, but instead, he had to act like a horny teenager. It ended with him moving out to live with his parents. A couple of days later, he called and apologized. He said he hoped it wasn't too late for him to do things right and he hoped we can all be friends. I was hopeful that we could finally co-parent in peace for the sake of our child. This is where it may be a bit confusing. I have always been close with my ex's parents, to the point where even after we broke up, I would be invited over regularly for dinner. They said even if I wasn't their son's partner, I'm still their grandchild's mother, and that makes me family. So one day when my daughter texts me while at my ex's parents' house and invites me to dinner because they're having my favorite meal, I don't think twice about coming over even though my ex and his girlfriend I've never met now live there. I figured everyone had to be okay with it since my daughter was inviting me. I end up having dinner with my ex's parents and daughter, but my ex only comes upstairs to grab 2 plates of food and goes back downstairs. I ask my ex's mom why, and she says his girlfriend doesn't feel well today. Whatever. I think she's just sick, and I'll meet her another day. I have a perfectly pleasant dinner with my ex-in-laws, help clean up, and make a promise to bring them a coconut cake, ex-father-in-law's favorite, and take my daughter home later. My ex blows up my phone with texts and calls, saying it was so weird and rude that I came over for dinner uninvited, that I made his new girlfriend uncomfortable and like she wasn't welcome there, and that I caused trouble in their relationship because she assumes we must still be in love for me to come over and see his parents out of the blue like that because exes don't do that. It's creepy. I had a talk with my daughter and asked her calmly if she had asked everyone else if it was okay if I come over before she texted me, and she sheepishly said she didn't know she had to ask since it had never been a problem before. I didn't tell her about her dad's meltdown at me or tell her dad that she's the one who invited me. She's a child and shouldn't be involved. Instead, I just told him I'm sorry my dropping by made things awkward, but I thought he wanted us all to be friends from now on, and I figured this was a good place to start being friends. He said there was no way she'd want to be my friend now that I made her feel uncomfortable in her own home. It wasn't my intention to make her feel uncomfortable, but I admit I'd be perturbed if someone brought this woman into my home and acted that way. Date 1. Hey all. I saw a post here recently about not getting a lot of updates to stories submitted to this blog yet, and figured I could give mine. Even though it's a sad one, I also maybe need to vent a little about this situation under the cut to save people's dashboards from now on. Ex's new girlfriend will be Kim, ex-father-in-law will be Phil, and ex-mother-in-law will be Mill. I'll start from the day after the dinner and try to give a concise recap of events. The day after the dinner, I bring Phil the coconut cake I promised, but not wanting to stir up trouble. I text that I'm bringing it over instead of dropping by unannounced like I normally would. Phil meets me on the porch instead of inviting me in like he normally would, and I gathered from his distant but polite tone and body language that he was basically shushing me away. I was hurt that a man who had always treated me like a daughter was being cold, but I didn't say anything about it, and I left. Over the next couple of weeks, my ex-in-laws continue to hold me at arm's length where once I would consider them not only family but close friends. I used to take Mill to doctor's appointments and shopping trips, but texts asking her about her next appointment or inviting her to come shopping with me went unanswered. I used to go fishing and go-karting with Phil, but these invites also stopped. I had a sneaking suspicion my ex was behind the sudden change in my ex-in-laws, and I also started to notice a change in my daughter. Because my ex and I were never actually married, there was no actual custody agreement between us. She would just text her dad if she wanted him to come pick her up or text me if she wanted to come home. She's always been a daddy's girl and spent more time with him than she did home with me, and I was fine with that, but after the dinner, she spent a lot more time home with me. One day, she went with her dad only to call me within the hour crying and asking me to pick her up on the way home. I gently reminded her that she could talk to me about anything, even if it was hard. That adjusting to her dad having Kim in his life would be a challenge, but if she had any problems, she could tell me, and I would help her fix them. And she told me what had transpired over my ex and Kim's relationship from her point of view. My ex and Kim had been dating for about 6 months before my daughter told me, and she pretty much knew about it from the beginning. My ex told her she couldn't tell me about it, and she agreed because she didn't want us to fight. My ex also had Kim around my daughter from the beginning, and my daughter was wary of her at first but started to like her. So the people saying I should meet Kim before she was around my daughter, that ship unfortunately sailed long ago. The day after the dinner, Mill texted my daughter and basically said, "You're not in any trouble, but don't mention your mom around Kim again." My daughter texted back asking why, and she said, "It's just easier not to upset her." Kim started doing all the things with my ex-in-laws I used to do. She took Mill to doctor's appointments. She took Mill shopping. She went fishing with Phil and tried to replicate my coconut cake. My daughter tried talking to her dad and said it felt like Kim was trying to replace me. And my dad just said, "She's just being their daughter-in-law. Your mother isn't their daughter-in-law anymore." Still, my daughter is stubborn and insisted it wasn't fair that her mother was being excluded from the family. Her dad just kept repeating, "She's not family," to which my daughter yelled, "She's my mom. That makes her more family than Kim." At this, Kim apparently got up and left the room while my ex ran after her. Kim didn't just leave the room, though. She took her keys and got in her car and drove away. My ex drove after her, and Mill and Phil started scolding my daughter, saying she needed to apologize to Kim when she got back. That's when my daughter called me in tears and asked me to come pick her up. She's insistent that she doesn't want to go back over there until they all apologize to her, and I don't blame her. I'm honestly at a loss at all this. My ex never had a problem with me being close with his parents, even though we were broken up. Hell, I was the one who stayed with Mill in the hospital for 4 months after she had a heart attack and subsequent heart surgery in 2021. I was the one who went to doctor's appointments and organized her medications and helped her with physical therapy. I was the one cooking meals every night and bringing them to Phil because both he and my ex have been spoiled rotten by Mill and don't know how to cook for themselves. I was the one cleaning the house for them for over a year while Mill recovered. I did it all because I love them, not just his family to my child but his dear friends. I don't know if this sudden change in behavior is how my ex felt all along or if Kim had something to do with it, though I suspect it's a combination of both. My ex has weaponized incompetence down to an art form, and I suspect now that he has a replacement woman to take care of him and his aging parents. He no longer needs me to do it. But that's basically all that's happened over the last month. Radio silence for me from people I used to love dearly, and I'm pushing my daughter away until she ran home in tears. As sad as I am for me, my heart breaks tenfold for her. Update 2. I honestly did not think I would be updating this post any longer. In the last couple of months, I've gotten a lawyer and I've been working out custody with my ex, which was rough at first but then calmed down. I don't want to go into too many details because the situation doesn't really involve me anymore, just my ex, and he is still my daughter's father, so I'll give the short version. When my ex was contacted by my lawyer, he started blowing up my phone, saying I was trying to take his daughter and all his money away from him and how could I do this to him because he would never do this to me, etc., etc. I shut that down quick and told him I didn't want a dime from him. I just wanted some assurance that the agreement we already had in place. Daughter stays with me but is free to visit him. Stays in place. He kept trying to say lawyers were unnecessary because he wasn't going to try to take her. I stuck to my guns and he eventually caved. Meanwhile, I had my own things to sort through and so did my daughter. It took a while to fully own the fact that I definitely contributed to the pain she is now feeling. When I broke up with my ex, I comforted her by telling her nothing would change. We were still living together. Then her dad moved out and still I told her nothing will change. I'll still be active in Phil and Mill's lives. I'll still go over there with you all the time. And while that was a nice thought, it didn't really prepare my daughter for the reality that families change all the time. And change doesn't have to be bad or scary. This whole time, she was basing her mental health on the idea that nothing about her family would change. So Kim's introduction slowly started to crumble away that feeling. But change is good. Change is normal. I may not like being cut off from Phil and Mill, but they're not wrong when they say I'm not family anymore. They're not wrong for trying to be welcoming to the new woman in their son's life. Sucks, but life goes on anyway. My daughter has been going over there for a few hours about once or twice a week with lots of caveats that she, her dad, and I all agreed to. She gets to decide when she comes over. Her dad can invite her, but she's allowed to say no and he can't argue. No one will force her to interact with Phil, Mill, or Kim if she doesn't want to. No one will take her anywhere if she doesn't want to go. If anyone makes her uncomfortable, she'll leave and walk to Diane's house and call me to come pick her. Diane is a coworker of mine who lives 3 blocks away and has known my daughter since she was a baby. This arrangement has been working out, and my daughter has said everyone has been extra nice to her. But they haven't actually said sorry for anything they did. She slowly started to seem happier and happier over there and asked if she could go to Phil's birthday party because her aunt and uncle from out of state would be visiting with her cousins. And I said yes. Well, tonight she came home and told me a doozy of a story. The party was great. Everyone was having a good time, and my daughter's older cousin was showing her how to play the Nintendo 64. Kim was nowhere to be found. Apparently, she didn't feel good again, and my ex went downstairs to check on her. Suddenly, they hear him screaming, "Where is it? What did you do with it?" Everyone got quiet and looked to the stairs where my ex stomped up and said everyone had to turn out their pockets because some money was missing from Phil and Mill's safe. For some context, this safe is locked under the stairs and needs a key and combination to get into it. It has important documents for the whole family and emergency cash in it. Phil, Mill, my ex, and now Kim are the only ones who know the combination, and the only key is hidden in Phil and Mill's room. My ex went downstairs to check on Kim, and she was asleep in bed, but the door to the cupboard under the stairs was open. He got a bad feeling and checked the safe, and about $2,000 was missing. He woke her up, and she cried and said she had been asleep the whole time and someone must have come down and stole the money while she was sleeping. I was pretty gratified to hear that my ex's family are nowhere near as naive as he is and immediately tore into him for believing that lie. None of them had a key or knew the combination, and all of them had been hanging out in the living room. Kim cleans Phil and Mill's room all the time and knew where the key was. He told Kim the combination. Kim was downstairs the whole time. Kim is the only person who could have done it. He tried to defend Kim and told everyone to leave her alone. But Phil put his foot down and told his son to find the money or he would call the cops to do it. My ex went back downstairs to talk to Kim, and everyone upstairs could hear her sobbing and calling him names. She went to get in her car, and my ex followed her, and what did he see sitting in her back seat? A bag stuffed to the brim with money. A bag that wasn't there a few hours ago. My ex tried to stop Kim from leaving, but she tore out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. Phil and Mill are furious and want to press charges, and my ex is begging them not to, saying he can get her to bring it back. I quit This Is Gonna Go Next, but honestly, I'm just kind of glad Kim and my ex didn't take me up on my original offer to be friends because holy shit. Update 3. After the party, I didn't press my daughter to tell me any more about the Kim situation in case she didn't want to talk about it, but she shared with me on her own that my ex found her the next day, and she had only spent $50 of it, which she paid back, and he returned the money to Phil and Mill, who decided not to press charges. Kim was not allowed back in Mill and Phil's house after that, so she and my ex broke up almost a week later. December 17, 2023, I got a call from Mill, the first one I had gotten from her since August. She started out by apologizing for not talking to me in so long and invited me over. This time I did ask who was going to be there, and she said it was just her and Phil in the house. Ex was at work. I said I'm not sure I should come over if it would be upsetting for my ex, and she said, to hell with him. It's my house and I invited you, so I went over that evening. Phil was glued to the TV and just nodded at me when I came in. Mill led me into the kitchen to talk privately. This time she apologized for being so distant and said it was my ex's idea that she and Phil cut all ties with me. I asked where he got the idea since it was never a problem before, and she said he didn't want to upset Kim. She said walking on eggshells to not upset Kim was apparently a common occurrence while she was living there. That she could be perfectly sweet and friendly, but the second you did anything to step on her toe, she would get in her car and leave and swear she's never coming back. In fact, she told me a great deal of things I didn't know about Kim and that my daughter was too young to ask about. Notice, for instance, things I now know about Kim. Kim is 52, as I mentioned before on this blog, and has 3 grown children. She was living with her oldest son when she met my ex, but after about 8.5 months of them dating, her son kicked her out, and she had nowhere to stay, so she moved in with Phil and Mill and my ex. Why she's a drug user. Mill knows Kim was on drugs because she admitted it to Phil. Phil is a retired cop and noticed strange behavior from Kim, like sudden bursts of energy followed by collapsing in a dead sleep, mood swings, and irritability coming and going at odd hours of the night, etc. Phil confronted both her and my ex with this information, and they admitted she was addicted to drugs but insisted she was getting treatment for it. Apparently, that's actually how Kim and my ex met. My ex is a recovered alcoholic, was never brought up until now because it wasn't relevant to the situation until now. It was really bad when we were young, but I assumed he had been sober since 2015. Unbeknownst to me, he had slipped back into his drinking habit sometime in later 2022 when we were still living together. I was there for him when he was at his worst and can say with 100% certainty he wasn't acting as bad as he was back then. But he did stay out late a lot and always seemed tired. I just assumed he was working late or hanging out with friends or hooking up with women. We weren't a couple at that point, and I felt it wasn't any of my business what he spent his nights doing as long as it didn't affect our daughter, and at that point I didn't believe it was. Fortunately, he realized on his own he needed to stop before he spiraled too far out of control and recognized he could not stop on his own. He joined a local drug and alcohol addiction program, and that's where he met Kim. They were in different programs, but those programs were in the same building. They ran into each other by chance, hit it off, and started dating. Apparently, my ex even confessed to trying Kim's drug of choice, but swore up and down he was a recreational user only and wasn't addicted. Mill and Phil said Kim could only stay with them if Kim continued treatment and any and all drug usage in their house stopped, and my ex and Kim agreed. Then the party happened, and Mill clarified a few things about that for me. What happened at the party? When my ex went downstairs to check on Kim the day, he could tell she had been taking drugs, so he went to tuck her into bed. To get to their bedroom, you have to walk by the stairs, and he noticed the door leading under the stairs was open just a crack when usually it's latched shut. He put Kim in bed and went to check it out and didn't see anything wrong, but he didn't trust it and opened the safe just to check. At this point, I interrupted and asked why Kim even knew the combination, and Mill just said my ex said she needed to know it in case of an emergency, and she was stupid to agree to that. They usually keep $10,000 in cash in the safe for emergencies, but my ex counted it twice and was sure $2,000 was missing. My ex freaked out and shook Kim and shouted at her, asking where it went. She said she didn't take it. He came back up to accuse the rest of the family. He lied and said Kim was sleeping the whole time to avoid mentioning she had taken drugs in his parents' house, but couldn't keep denying Kim had to have done it when everyone else kept telling him that she was the only one who could have. He went back downstairs to confront her. She yelled that he scared her when he shook her and screamed in her face for no reason. He told her she was the only one who could have taken it. She kept denying it and he kept pushing, so she got her bag, stuffed a few clothes inside, and went out the back door to her car. She threw the bag in the back seat so hard the stuff inside spilled out, and my ex saw several stacks of money rubber banded together, just like the money in the safe is. He tried to open the car door, but she had already locked it and sped out of the driveway. The next day he found her in her car in the parking lot of her oldest son's apartment building. She had asked if she could stay there with him. He said no, so she spent the night in her car. She cried and said she hadn't been to her treatment program in weeks and now she needed money to pay some people back. And she was scared. My ex said he didn't care. Give him back the money. She gave him back all but $50 that she had spent. He said she needed to pay him back in a week or he'd call the cops on her. And a few hours later, she did. She also came with her daughter to pick up the rest of her things from Mill and Phil's house just a couple of days before Mill called me. What happened next leading up to Christmas? Both Phil and Mill kept in touch with me, almost to the point they had preempted me, and I was cordial and polite with them but kept my distance. Mill even tried dropping hints that she wanted me to come clean house for them at one point, and I just directed her to the number for a cleaning service. Quite proud of myself for that one. Smile. However, my daughter stayed in close contact with them and held out hopes that I was going to go over there for Christmas like I did every year. I tried gently reminding her that might be awkward for everyone, and she just insisted it wouldn't be awkward because Kim's gone now, and besides, if I didn't go to Phil and Mill's house, I would be alone on Christmas. My only living family are on the other side of the country, and we are not close at all, and according to my daughter, that was unacceptable. Then it happened on Christmas Eve. My ex texted me that he needed to talk to me and my daughter and came over to tell us he was getting back together with Kim. Kim's back. He said he'd been talking to her and she said she was sorry about taking the money. That her plan was to use it to pay back some bad people who had been scaring her and then replace it before anyone noticed it was gone. That he believed she really was sorry and really would do better, and he wanted to be with her again and give her a chance to prove she can change. I didn't say anything, but my daughter, bless her heart, just said, "You really bought all that?" My ex looked annoyed at her tone but continued and said he was there to invite her out to dinner with him and Kim because Kim had already apologized to Mill and Phil and wanted the chance to apologize to her too. My daughter was quiet and looked uncomfortable, so I told her she could make whatever choice felt right, and I would support her. To his credit, my ex did too and said if she didn't want to be around Kim, he wouldn't make her be. She ended up saying she didn't want to go to dinner right then, but maybe later she would change her mind. Then she brought up Christmas and asked if I could still come over, and my ex's face fell. He said he doesn't think Kim would be comfortable with me coming over. My daughter lost it at this, and so did I, but just internally. She already proved she would steal from the family at a social gathering less than a month ago. She hasn't done anything to make up for that yet, but she gets to go to Christmas, and I don't. My ex just said it was already decided that Kim would be there for Christmas, and my daughter throwing a tantrum over it wouldn't change it. And after he and her exchanged some more heated words, he left. I tried telling my daughter I am absolutely 100% fine not being invited to Christmas, that she should still go if she wants to because it would make me sad if she felt like she has to pick me over the rest of her family. I told her if she can't forgive her dad yet, she should still go to see her cousins and aunt and uncle, and she can ignore him the whole time if she wants. Took a while, but she eventually agreed she still wanted to go. That is, until she started getting texts. The texts. First, Mill texted my daughter, saying she was disappointed in her for causing drama on Christmas Eve and how everyone else has agreed to suck it up and be nice to Kim for Christmas, and she should too. While she was showing me the text with tears in her eyes, she got another one from her aunt that said, "Shame on you. I can't believe the way you've been talking to your father." This sent my daughter down a spiral. She realized her dad had been talking about her to the rest of the family and probably twisting the situation to make her look bad. Her, a 12-year-old girl. Y'all, I know I've made a lot of mistakes in this situation. I know I've been naive, but I feel like I've been a saint going out of my way to make sure my daughter doesn't resent her dad for any of this. I've been telling her over and over again that he's her dad and he loves her and he wants what's best for her. But this, I can't talk him out of this. I don't know where to begin. She begs me not to make her go over there for Christmas because she doesn't want to face her whole family not knowing what her dad has told them about her. I told her, of course, she doesn't have to. I texted my ex that our daughter doesn't feel safe going over there for Christmas anymore, and my phone stays silent, but my daughter's phone blows up. She ended up blocking most of her family to get them to stop texting her and cried herself to sleep. Since then, I have not tried to get my daughter to contact her dad since December 24th, 2023. He's called her a few times since then, and she mostly just answers him with short 1- or 2-word answers. She doesn't go places with him anymore. She doesn't want to go see him anymore. He has called me a few times to accuse me of turning his daughter against him. But it's pretty easy to shut him down with, "Would you want to talk to someone who turns everything you say against you to your own family?" I'm sure he's told his family a whole slew of colorful things about me, but I don't care, and none of them have reached out to me with vitriol, just a 12-year-old child. Imagine that. I don't know what's going on with Kim or Mill or Phil anymore, and I don't care. I'm just focused on trying to bring my daughter back to that loud, boisterous, stubborn kid she used to be, and I think we're getting there slowly. Therapy is helping her, and I'm so glad I got the custody arrangement when I did. Now on to the next story. Story 6. I planned my mother-in-law Kelly's 50th birthday party. But while at the event, she gave a speech humiliating me about my past to shame me. Now I've cut her off and the whole family is blaming me. Hi, so I, 27F, got married to my husband Jonah, 28M, 3 months ago. We'd been in a relationship for 4 years before we got married. He got along pretty well with my family, but I can't say the same for myself. His family's women have a thing where they mostly quit their jobs a few months after getting married and believe in a more traditional lifestyle. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's their personal choice, and it has been because, as far as I know, the men of Jonah's family haven't pressured the women into quitting their jobs. It's been out of their own free will. I personally don't believe in that kind of lifestyle, and I made it very clear to Jonah that I wanted to continue working after marriage. It was non-negotiable. He didn't have a problem with that and told me that he actually expected me to continue working and made a joke about how 2 incomes were always better than 1, so he preferred it this way. So Jonah is pretty supportive of my decision, and that's the way it should be. My mother-in-law, Kelly, is unfortunately not on board with that, never has been, and it reflects in her behavior. To be honest, most of the women in his family, including his sister Jessica and all of his aunts and other female relatives, have always been very cold towards me and have never made an effort to include me or be nice to me. I never understood why, because I never judged them for their decision to quit their jobs, even though, in my opinion, that wasn't something I agreed with. But I'd always tried to be nice to them, yet they never behaved the same way with me. I was always willing to put our differences aside and be nice to them, but they weren't. They made it very clear to me, right from the first meeting, that they didn't like me and never would until I joined their club of stay-at-home wives and moms, which was never going to happen. Jonah told me to ignore it and said that the only thing that mattered was if the 2 of us were okay with our arrangement, and as long as we were okay with it, it didn't matter what other people thought of us. So I tried to deal with it like he told me to. I ignored his family's cold behavior towards me for as long as we were in a relationship. Every time I'd attend any family event of his, the women of the family would try to talk me into quitting my job, but they never succeeded, and that's probably how they started resenting me. When I got engaged, none of the women in his family seemed to be happy at our engagement party, and they had the same sour faces even at our wedding. But I didn't care because, like Jonah had said, as long as we were okay, it didn't matter what they thought. I was used to them being all cold and distant towards me, and it just increased after our marriage, but I tried my best not to care about it. However, about 2 weeks ago, my mother-in-law surprised me by asking me to organize her 50th birthday. Kelly usually doesn't talk to me at all unless it's absolutely required of her, so I was quite surprised when she called me and told me that she wanted me to do it for her. I'm an event organizer by profession and have my own firm, so I took that as a sign of her finally accepting me, and it brought me a lot of joy when she asked me to take over the planning. I was actually overjoyed and decided that I was going to do it all on my own and wouldn't take even $1 from her. It would all come out of my own pocket because that's how happy I was. I booked one of our best venues and oversaw everything personally because I wanted everything to be perfect. She was also pretty helpful and nice throughout, and that was a welcome change of pace from her usual behavior. And then finally, yesterday, on the day of her birthday, she thanked me for all my hard work by making a humiliating speech against me, to try and paint me in a bad light. Once all the guests had arrived and she'd cut her cake, everybody encouraged her to make a speech on her 50th birthday, and so did I, not knowing that it would backfire so badly. It started off nicely enough. She thanked everybody for coming, and then she thanked me for planning and organizing everything so beautifully. But then it went in a different direction where she started talking about my career as an event planner. She started talking about how I'd started at a different firm as the one in charge of decorations, and it was true. I did indeed start at another firm, and I was actually in charge of decor and stuff. But I hadn't told her about this because she never bothered to ask me anything about my work, so I didn't know where she was getting that information from, and I had a bad feeling that this was not going to end well, and she proved me right by bringing up how I was fired for indecent conduct with my boss after a couple of months, which wasn't even the full story. She told everyone that my boss had to fire me because I'd apparently tried to wiggle my way into a promotion by flirting with an already married man. And my boss didn't appreciate that, so he had to let me go. Jonah knew about this incident because it was one of the worst things that had ever happened to me, and I was wrongfully terminated by my previous employer on false charges. That's not something you move on from easily. The real story was that my boss had tried to make a move on me a couple of times but had been rejected every single time. One day he called me into his office for a meeting and told me that he was ready to offer me a promotion and a significant raise if I agreed to get into a relationship with him. But I rejected him then and there and threatened to complain about him. So he twisted the story according to his convenience and had me fired. I did file a lawsuit against him, but he offered me a large amount of hush money as long as I signed an NDA and never talked about that incident in a public space again, and came to a settlement. Unfortunately, I took him up on that offer because at the time I was really struggling, and I didn't come from a very financially well-off family, so money was everything to me, and I couldn't afford to lose out on the kind of money that he was offering me. So he got to tell his side of the story according to his convenience, and everybody that worked with him believed that I was the one who tried to make a move on him for a raise. It backfired, and I was let go for trying to hit on my boss. Only a couple of my close friends and my family know the real truth, and it was downright humiliating for me to hear Kelly talk about such a well-guarded secret in front of so many people. Practically Jonah's entire family and also a couple of his friends and Kelly's friends. She made a mockery out of the worst thing that had ever happened to me, something that I'm still struggling to forget. So I stormed out of the venue with tears in my eyes without even waiting for her to end her speech. I didn't even wait for Jonah to follow me. I was really upset, and I was already halfway home in my car when Jonah called me and told me to come back to the party. I said no at first, but he insisted that I needed to come back, so I headed back to the party. Once I got there, I saw that the place was practically empty, apart from a couple of our common friends and a few relatives who had always been nice to me. Kelly wasn't there anymore, and neither were any of his other family members, which was surprising because it was supposed to be Kelly's birthday party. He told me that he'd kicked them all out and would get into the details of it later, but for now he just wanted me to enjoy it because I'd worked hard to make this party a huge success, and he wanted me to enjoy the result of my own hard work, and I'd also spent a lot of money on this, so I deserved it. I tried to talk to him about what had happened, but he told me to forget about it and just enjoy the evening, and we could discuss that later. So he and I and the other people who'd stayed went on with the evening, and we actually had a nice time. We talked, we laughed, and then we had a lot of champagne and a heck of a lot of delicious food, which was supposed to be for my mother-in-law and her guests, but she screwed it up for herself. So Jonah did save the evening, not for Kelly, but for me. Then finally, when we got home, I asked Jonah what had happened after I left. He told me that Kelly ended the speech exactly like he'd expected her to, with a dig at me about how I was immoral and unethical just because I'm a working woman, and that I have no moral values, I don't care about my family, and stuff like that. And she even warned Jonah to make me quit my job or else there'd be more such incidents for him to look out for. She also insinuated that I'd probably tried to do this more than once, but that was the only time I was caught, and apparently that's how I have a firm of my own now, completely disregarding all my hard work over the past couple of years. It was a disgusting thing to say about me as a woman herself, and Jonah felt the same way about it. So he told his mother that she needed to get the hell out of there, and when a couple of other people protested against it, he told them that this party had been paid for and organized all by me, so if they didn't like me, then they were free to leave. There was a lot of chaos, and Kelly refused to back down without a fight, so she kept trying to argue with him, but Jonah shut it down and had her kicked out of the party by security who knew that he was my husband, so they did what he asked them to. Once she was removed from the premises, most of the other guests pretty much followed suit, either out of awkwardness or as a form of protest because they wanted Jonah to know that they believed Kelly was right and I was the worst. The only people who stayed were a couple of our friends and a few other relatives who we spent the rest of the evening with. It was quite disappointing that out of a guest list that comprised almost 40 people, only 8 people bothered to stay back, but I was really proud of my husband for standing up to his mother for my sake. He apologized to me for not doing it sooner because he'd always felt that she'd eventually come around. That speech convinced him that she was too set in her ways to think of anybody's happiness except her own. He told me that he was really sorry that it had taken him so long to shut down his mother's BS. But it was fine by me. She'd never been so outright horrible to me and had always kept it subtle. So it didn't seem worth it to ruin relationships over something like that. and even I believed that she'd come to accept me at some point. But now we all knew that she wasn't even capable of it. However, that's not the reason that I'm here. It's actually what happened after that incident and the phone call this morning that's brought me here, so I can have an objective set of opinions on this. I still don't know how Kelly was able to find out about that incident because nobody knows apart from my close and trusted people, and I'm sure they'd never tell her this because they know that she'd have a field day talking about it and treating it like gossip. I am guessing someone from my workplace blabbed, and she found out through her other gossip-monger friends. But that's not the point. This morning she called me to tell me that she was really sorry about her speech the previous night. She told me that she didn't know the real story, which is why she'd brought it up to use against me. I was really angry, so I told her that it didn't matter why she did it. What mattered was that it was done now, and she couldn't take any of it back. She'd obviously also been planning for this for quite a while, and I couldn't believe that she'd stoop to such a low level just so she could humiliate me, even after I organized such a beautiful party for her. I was extremely upset, and I just let it all out on the phone. I told her that I never wanted to hear from her ever again because what she'd done was absolutely unforgivable. She tried to talk to me calmly and said that the only reason that she'd made that speech was because she wasn't aware of the real story up until last evening, and after she found out, she felt sorry. But honestly, the story wasn't even the problem for me. Even if it had been true, she had no right to talk about it in front of that many people and try to humiliate me. To me, what hurt was that her intention had been to make me look bad all along, and I couldn't stand that or forgive that. I told her that I wasn't interested in her apology because it was too late now, and she'd already shown me her true colors. She tried to say something, but then I hung up before she could finish her sentence. So then she texted me and said that she really was sorry about what happened, and she wanted me to forgive her because she felt terrible about it. I texted back and said that she should feel terrible about it for quite some time until I started feeling better. After that message, she told me that I was taking this too far, and that there really wasn't anything else that she could do apart from just apologize. I didn't reply to her after that. Then a couple of hours back, Jonah came home, and I discussed this with him. He told me that I could choose to forgive his mother whenever I was okay with it and that there was no pressure on me. I could even choose not to forgive her and that would still be okay. But I don't think any of his other relatives feel the same way because his father also texted me, and so did his sister, to tell me that I really needed to accept Kelly's apology because she's been miserable the entire day. They told me that she felt horrible about what she did, and that only if I forgave her would she start feeling better about things. Jonah doesn't think that I need to do it just to please her and the family, but there's nothing that they can do apart from apologize, and honestly, Kelly sounded pretty genuine on the phone. I know the right thing to do would be to just forgive her and try to move on from this episode instead of holding on to it and being dramatic, but I honestly do want to hold on to it because they made me feel awful about myself and used the worst thing that had ever happened to me against me without even knowing the truth. I think that's pretty much as low as they can go, and just one apology doesn't even cut it. And I'm afraid that I sound like a total drama queen right now, but that's how I really feel. I don't want to ruin the peace of his family just because of this, and I want to know if I'm overreacting or if it's completely normal for me to feel this way. So I'm asking for advice on whether or not I should forgive my mother-in-law for the humiliating speech she made against me. Date 1. Hey, so it's been a few days now. I still haven't made up my mind about what to do about the whole situation with Kelly, but she's been apologizing to me and sending me messages almost every day to let me know that she is sorry and she means her apology. I feel bad for ignoring all of it, but I do know one thing, that I don't need to forgive her just because she's sorry. At least that's one thing that I've taken away from this thread. I also managed to find out how Kelly got to know about that incident at my first workplace. So I did some digging on social media, and I went through Kelly's account. In one of her recent photos, she was hanging out with a woman who looked really familiar, and I found out that that was one of my ex-coworker's mothers. And in the background, I could see my ex-coworker too. That coworker of mine always had a picture of her family on her desk, and I remembered that lady from the photo. I wasn't close with that person, and I'm guessing that she believed my boss's version of the story, which she then went on to tell other people. Kelly met my coworker and her mother at her nephew's wedding a couple of weeks ago, which explains why she found out about this recently. Otherwise, she would have tried to use this against me way back. It was awful that the universe had brought these people together, and they'd exchanged stories about me because it screwed up things for me. As for how she got to know the real version of the story, I just asked Jonah if he told her mom, and he confessed that he had indeed told his mom about the reality because he wanted to make sure that I received an apology at the very least, since he thought that this was kind of his fault for not intervening before. I never really thought of it that way because he'd never taken his family's side over mine, and you can't exactly call out people from your family just because they're acting cold towards your wife. That's just childish. But he did stand up for me the one time that it really counted, and that was on Kelly's birthday. So I think he did the right thing. I have no complaints against my husband. Update 2. Now that it's been a week since the incident, I finally decided that I was going to accept Kelly's apology, but I wasn't going to speak to her again. I'm sticking to that. The only problem is that if I don't speak to her, Jonah doesn't speak to her, and I don't think that she's going to take that well. I've told Jonah that I don't mind if he continues to keep in touch with his mother, but he's vehemently opposed to the idea and has told me that if I don't talk to her, then he's not going to talk to her either because we are a package deal, and that's a pretty sweet way of putting it. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to break the news to her because it's pretty weird to just say, I do forgive you, but I don't want to hear from you ever again. I do have to explain certain things, and I have a lot to say to her, not just about the incident that took place recently but also about everything that has happened over the past few years. I need her to know that she and the other women in their family cannot treat people so badly just because their beliefs don't align. It's going to sound preachy, but I just need to tell her that so that no other woman has to go through what I went through when I married into this family. Update 3. So I texted her and got it all off my chest. I told her that I do forgive her, but I'm not interested in having a relationship anymore, and I think it's for the best if we all stay apart for a while now. I tried to put it as politely and nicely as I could, but I did tell her that the way she and the other women of her family treated me was extremely unfair and almost made them seem like a cult which didn't allow working women or something. I told them that they couldn't treat people this way because it was disgusting, and while I'm glad that at least Kelly has come to her senses, it'd be great if she explained this to everybody else and made sure that they learned this very important lesson as well. I tried to be polite throughout the text, but unfortunately, she didn't take that well either. Her replies were very defensive, and she told me that if I just came clean and told everybody about that incident in the first place before marriage, then she never would have made a speech about it, as if this was my fault. She also said that she just wanted to apologize and she didn't need a sermon on ethics and morality from me now because she believed that I wasn't exactly the best person for that. I don't even know what that was supposed to mean, but if Kelly said it, then I'm pretty sure it couldn't mean anything good. I felt like it was a dig at me once again, and it just made me feel better about the fact that Jonah was also cutting them off because that would teach them a lesson. By the time I was done reading her texts, I almost started regretting ever even responding to her. It just took one text from me saying that I wanted to go no contact for her to go back and undo all the work and effort she'd been putting in for the past week or so into winning me back over. The way she reacted to my message and my decision to have boundaries with her and her family just negated everything she'd said in the past. It was disappointing, but Jonah and I've learned not to expect any better from his family either. The one good thing about this is that I can finally put it all out of my mind and pretend that none of this ever happened. Update 4. So it's been 3 weeks since my last update here, and it's been pretty dull. So I haven't posted here because there hasn't been much to say. After that last conversation, Kelly stopped texting me, but she did try to talk to Jonah, and when she realized that he was not going to speak to her, she cursed at him by text and then blocked him out of anger. Couple of days later, I was blocked too. Jonah's father has been trying to convince him to fix things between me and his mother because he doesn't want so much family drama to deal with, but that's not going to happen, and Kelly has made sure of it, so I'm not going to try either. The entire family is against me right now because they feel like I've taken Jonah away from her and are blaming me for breaking up the family, as if Kelly had no role to play in this. A few of the relatives who are on our side have kept us updated about what everybody else is saying, and it's crazy how they refuse to acknowledge their own fault. They only care about pinning all the blame on one person, which just so happens to be me. I'm pretty much used to it now, so I honestly don't mind it, and like I said in the beginning itself, as long as Jonah and I are happy with each other and are true to ourselves, it doesn't matter to us what everybody else thinks. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Paid for my wife's college, supported her career, and helped her follow her dreams. Then I found out she was cheating with a coworker and hiding a secret son from her past. I'm totally new to this, and it's nice just to get this off my chest. This is going to be a very long one, and I'm not a good writer, so hang in there with me. We've been together a long time, and I think you need some history to see how we ended up where we're at. My wife and I met when we were both in college. We were both working part-time and going to school full-time, and met while we were on lunch break from our jobs. I thought she was very pretty, so I went to eat there again hoping to see her again. She came up to me and started talking to me the next time we were both there, and I was sure she was interested, so I asked her out. We quickly started dating, and after a couple of years we got married. When we met, I was just finishing school, and the company I was working for part-time offered me a full-time management position. My now wife was still in school, and I was paying for her college 100%. I actually started paying for her college shortly after we became a couple because she came from a very large family, and they couldn't afford to help her. In working part-time, she didn't have a lot either, and I was then working full-time, so I paid for her schooling. This is important later. She is very smart, brilliant, graduated with honors, and after a couple of not-so-great jobs, got a real good professional job that she stayed at for many years, making good money with very good benefits. During our dating years and our early marriage, we had a great lovemaking life. We didn't have sex every single day, but when we did, it was wild and sometimes very kinky. I was fairly popular in high school, captain of the football team, and in college. I was in good shape, ran half marathons, etc. I guess I did okay with the ladies and had a number of partners and one long-term girlfriend that got a little kinky. My wife, however, was much more experienced than I. She was younger than me but had many more partners and had done much more than I sexually. She liked to party and go a little wild when she partied, so she had a bit of a well-earned reputation. I found out all about it from a mutual friend right from the start, and I was good with it. If anything, it made me like her all the more. Early in our relationship, she would always tell me how good I was and how I was the first person that cared about her needs and got her off. That always made me feel good, and to this day, I always make sure she is satisfied before me. I'm fairly average in all ways, so I always felt the need to put in maximum effort to make sure my partner wanted me and wouldn't stray, thinking they could get better sex from someone else. Sure, I'm a little insecure there. After a few years of marriage, I decided to pursue a dream of starting my own sports team, and it was a real struggle to get things off the ground. My wife helped me every step of the way, and to make things even more interesting, we bought a big house at about the same time. We were both working our regular jobs and now working to get this new business going. I probably didn't get more than 4 hours of sleep at night for the next 20 years, and that's not an exaggeration. Money was pretty tight at this time because of all the time I was spending with my new team. I changed jobs a few times and was putting a lot of my own money into the team to build it up. My wife was bringing home more money than me, and there were a few arguments about money and how much I was spending, but all in all, we were rock solid. She was my best friend, wife, and lover. The team travels to events every weekend during the season, and probably 90% of the time my wife traveled with me and was by my side all the time before we had kids. Some events weren't far from home, so I would be home late that night even if she didn't go. This meant that I missed a lot of family and friend occasions. She went to many family and friends' weddings and other things solo. She even took a few trips with her single friends to the beach for a week to hang out and relax. She loves the beach. Shortly after our 5th wedding anniversary, I was looking for some team pictures, and my wife told me to look in the drawers in a spare room. I found pictures of her bachelorette party. We had talked about it afterward, and she had told me about all the drinking and dancing, flirting with some guys, and that it was pretty innocent and tame. My bachelor party was pretty wild, and some of the wildest things were done by her brother, so I was a fairly good boy and wasn't worried about hers at all. Well, the pictures painted a little different picture. Her maid of honor bought her a stripper and was nice enough to take pictures so she'd remember the night. I guess there was a lot of alcohol in the picture. It showed the stripper doing his thing and my wife grinding on him, having a good time. The last photo showed him completely bare, standing in front of her. She still had all her clothes on, with her hand wrapped around his junk. I was like, what the F? I took the photos and immediately showed them to her and asked, what the F? She said she didn't tell me about the stripper because she didn't want me to get jealous and that all her friends were egging her on to touch him. And she was quite drunk, so she did. She swore up and down that was all that happened, and since I had done about the same at my party that same night, I didn't think I could be too pissed. I was really only mad that she didn't tell me about it. She knew exactly what happened at mine. All her brothers told her. This did let me know that she could do something and leave out details when she told me and not feel she was lying at all. It always left a nagging little doubt in my head about those beach trips and if she was completely honest about them. Fast forward a few years and things were greatly improving. We waited to have kids because we wanted to be able to provide for them properly. My sports team had really started to take off and was starting to make us money instead of costing us money. We both had good jobs and we decided it was time to have kids. We had 2 children for years apart and everything was going great. The sports team was really taking off, winning championships, awards, etc. I started to become a little bit of a local celebrity. Everyone knew who I was. I was doing TV interviews, radio, etc., just local and regional stuff, nothing big time, but things were going great. In fact, between my 2 children's births, my wife and I were having the most sex we ever had in our relationship. Wild, crazy times that we both seemed to enjoy very much. There was even some internet stuff and she was the star. Remember, she is very pretty and a bit kinky, too. This ended a few years ago at her request. These were probably the best days of my life. It is also very important to note that even though we were having some wild times, it was just the 2 of us. We had talked about ever fooling around and both completely agreed it was a 100% deal breaker. She told me if I ever cheated, we were done. End of story. We were still very close, but I have found out very recently that after our second child was born, that's when she started resenting the sports team. She has now told me it bothered her that I was getting all the attention, awards, etc., after she had done so much work and sacrificed so much to get things going. I really didn't see it at the time. Hang in there. The part where I need your help is coming soon. Now we have children, and she can't or doesn't want to bring them to all our events, so she starts traveling with the team less and less. I swear that I always ask her to go, as I really want her there with me. Fast forward a few more years, and my wife's father passes away. They were very close, and he was very protective of his baby girl. Side note, he didn't like me at all at first but warmed up to me, and I really liked him and respected him a lot. After a short period of time, my wife announces she is quitting her job and going back to school to change careers and following her father's footsteps. I'm a little worried because that means I have to pay for her to go to college again, take care of 2 young kids, work my regular job, and run my team too, as she will be returning to school full-time. I really wanted to support her, though, because of how much I knew it meant to her and all the support she had given me starting my team. She went summers, nights, etc. to get done as fast as she could, and I made it work as best as I could. The kids and I look back at these times and really think it was fun. Me picking them up from daycare, cooking, microwaving kids' cuisine, and them tagging along to nights with the team. Things seemed to be going great. Fast forward to a few years ago, and we're doing so well that I say I want to take her away for a week to her favorite beach for a week. Just the 2 of us as a second honeymoon. We didn't have a lot of money for our first one, so it wasn't so great, and I wanted to make it up to her. It went great. She loved the beach, and we made love more than we did on our first honeymoon. And that's when things seemed to start going bad. After that trip, even though the kids were older, she didn't want to travel with the team anymore. She started wanting to take a trip every summer to the beach right in the middle of my season when she knew I couldn't go. She said I could come if I want, but she's going either way. She said she was tired of missing out, and since we were doing so well, we could afford it, and she was going. She'd take the kids and usually invite some of her family along, but it still makes me feel bad. She didn't get to go this year, but has already told me she's going next year without me again. I don't think she's meeting anyone on these trips, but I still don't think it's a good thing. As the last few years have played out, she seems to resent my team more and more. She comes around the team so little that even friends ask what's up. If you've stayed with me for this long, the novel is coming to an end. About 2 years ago, she starts talking about a new coworker a lot. Yeah, you can see where this is going. She tells me how smart he is and all the new ideas he has and how they have become friends very quickly, which is unusual as she hasn't made friends with her coworkers that much. I'm really getting bad vibes from this right from the start. Then her company is having a big company outing, taking a bus trip to a big city for a fancy dinner and show, and spouses are invited. I go partially just so I can meet this guy. He's bigger than me, around 6 feet 2 inches, but he's pretty fat and out of shape. But it's obvious to me the way he looks at my wife that he likes her. I ask her about him when we're alone, and she says that they're just friends and for me not to worry, just look at him, she says. I could never be attracted to someone like that. Well, on the bus ride home, she asks me not to sit next to her so she can stretch out and fall asleep, as it's close to 1 a.m. Honestly, it pissed me off because I figured she'd have coworkers sitting with her in no time. She doesn't for most of the trip, about 4 hours, but for the last half hour he comes up and sits next to her, and they talk the rest of the way home. Of course, I asked what they were talking about, and she says it's a work project coming up that they will be working on together. Of course, my spidey senses are going crazy, but I've got no proof anything is going on. Things actually seem to cool off for a little while, as I think they both have other big projects that keep them apart, but I'm not at all sure about it. One thing is for sure, she stopped sleeping with me. She says it's my snoring, and I do snore. I offer to sleep in another room so she doesn't have to sleep on the couch, so now we're sleeping in separate rooms. Let's call that red flag number 3, but I'm not really counting. It gets worse. The lovemaking stops shortly thereafter, 2 giant red flag. She always wanted sex, but now says medical things are bothering her, the kids might hear, or 1,001 other excuses why she doesn't want to anymore. I've tried to talk to her about this a number of times, and it never goes well. I try and keep my cool, but I have asked if there is someone else because I figure if she isn't getting it from me, she's getting it from someone else. Looking back, I wish I didn't say that. Then maybe she would have let her guard down. Anyway, about a month or so ago, one night at about midnight, her phone starts blowing up. She used to leave it downstairs at night to charge, and I was going to be sleeping downstairs that night. I got lucky and figured out her password, and of course the coworker is the one texting her. I stayed up the entire night reading their texts and going through her phone. It was a Friday night, so I didn't have to be at work the next morning, but we did have a team event, but I really didn't care. He was texting how much he missed her and when they'd see each other soon. There were missing texts and conversations when things were getting more heated, and it was obvious from the conversations that it seemed like there were phone calls and other things missing as well. Like I said from the start, she is a very smart woman, and you could tell she was trying to hide certain things. There were tons of I love yous. Way more than I have heard in the last few years. Lots of I miss yous, I miss your hugs, blowing kisses emojis, and a lot more. Some selfies accompanied things together saying how cute they are and on and on. The only thing is there is not any actual talk of having sex or proof of an actual physical affair. Obviously, it looks like there's one going on to me. She has the time as I work a lot and spend time with the team, and I think she thinks the motive. There's been a ton of other red flags that I think I chose to ignore until now. She's had to work late a lot the last year or so. There were a couple of trips for work. She's all of a sudden started drinking, and it's quite a bit every night, and many other things. I guess my fear of losing everything I've worked so hard for kept me from blowing this up sooner. The day after I went in her phone, I asked my oldest child if the coworker was married. I thought he was, and my oldest has had an internship at my wife's company before the lockdown happened, so I figured they would know. They asked why, and I made up some lie about seeing him on Facebook with no wife, and I thought he had a wife. My child immediately went to my wife and told her I was asking about the coworker's wife. Then she came storming into my office and screamed at me about looking through her phone. She knew instantly why I would ask that. I guess I'm sure I must have sent off a bunch of other signs that I was wondering if something was going on. Anyway, she went through all the things cheaters usually do. She denied everything. I took screenshots, so she only admitted to what I had proof of, which wasn't much. Blamed me for invading her privacy, blamed me for a lot of other stuff too. Basically turning it around that I drove her to seek this close emotional friendship with him, but that was all it was. I knew I didn't have any proof of anything else, so I said I wasn't accusing her of anything, but she had to agree it looked pretty bad from my point of view and how everything was going between us. She got mad because I was so calm and wouldn't yell back and stormed out. I looked at a lot of Reddit since then and realized just how many mistakes I've made since that blow-up. She's been hiding her phone, changed her passwords on everything, and has made sure she is not going to let me find anything else very easily. I did ask her about this, and she tells me I invaded her privacy, but if I want her phone, I can have it. I politely told her I know how smart she is, and if she wanted to hide something from me, she's smart enough to figure out how. So where do I go from here? I just want the truth. We had one other talk, but it was more of the same. I don't want to lose everything, but if she's a lying cheater, I don't want that either. The worst part is I still love her with all my heart. She's so smart, beautiful, a great mother to my kids, who are both brilliant like her. Tops in their class. I know I'm not perfect. I can be pretty intense, work a lot, and I've made many mistakes, I'm sure, but I've tried really hard to give her a good life. I just want the truth, no matter if it's going to hurt or not. No half-truths or trickle the truth to me. God, this sucks. Any good advice is appreciated, thanks in advance. Update 1. I'll try to not drone on. So 2 quick parts as I've got a few DMs asking for more updates. Part 1. We've tried to stay together and work through things. A lot of things have gone a lot better. We've had more sex in the last month than in the last year, and it's been very good. After a few more rough patches, she's given me total access to her phone and all social media. He still texts, etc., but she only gives very short, usually one-word answers. I think he still is trying, but she's keeping her answers very short, mostly just about work. So all in all, really good, right? Well, our anniversary came, and I really tried to do some nice things. Bought her favorite dessert, bought flowers, took time off from work to deliver them to her to surprise her, etc. She cried and cried. She said she didn't deserve it and wouldn't stop crying. She would not tell me what was wrong. This happened twice. Seemed like serious guilt to me. But she wouldn't tell me what was wrong, so I'm left to think the worst. She also accused me of tracking her with GPS, which I'm not, when she was going out to lunch with coworkers. She said I'd see it on the GPS I'm tracking her with, so she wanted to let me know why she was going there. Maybe it's not a bad thing to let her think I am. She didn't give me a chance to tell her I wasn't. I just let her comments go. Then the bomb dropped last night. Part 2. She has a son that she had when she was very young before we met and gave him away to a very nice family. He wants to connect with my wife, his biological mother, and our children. She wants to tell our children about him this weekend and wants to let him meet his half-siblings. They have zero idea he exists. She says she showed me his picture. I had never seen him before. He apparently looks like his father because he has no similarities to my wife. She went to a family wedding last year and talked to him when I was away. They know a lot about each other's families and have been following each other through social media. She basically says I have no say in any of this since it's her son and I'm no relation, and it's my children's half-brother. I don't know what to think anymore. Any good advice on how to handle this new revelation would be greatly appreciated. Update 2. Honestly, I've thought about going to see a therapist on my own, but I'm afraid I'll look weak, and I want to appear strong to my wife and kids. I know that's probably messed up, but it's the truth. I guess that's why I'm here with a throwaway. My children aren't minors anymore, that's recent. Her son is also much older than my children with her, so he's an adult. Won't be moving in. The disrespect is probably the thing that bothers me the most. Also, the lawyer is a very good idea. She has never actually even stated that she shut him down. She just says that their relationship will be strictly professional now. They still work together, and so she says they still have to have contact, etc. If I do in fact find that this is an ongoing affair, that's the deal breaker, and I will end things. I did state in another comment that even though I have no proof of actual physical cheating, there was definitely emotional cheating, and I'm treating this as though there was physical cheating too, and we are supposed to be working to fix the many issues in our marriage. I am not sweeping this under the rug. She says she is doing things to help me rebuild my trust in her, access to her phone, social media, etc. She could still be cheating, but I haven't found proof yet, and I will be diligent but not crazy, so trying to find out the truth. As for her son, it seems she is being very disrespectful about the whole situation. I called 3 different lawyers this morning, and I'm going to decide which one to talk to and see where I stand legally with all my assets. Her son is a bomb to me because it makes you realize someone can lie by omission for so long, and you wonder what else they've hidden from you over the years. I've talked to my oldest and asked why they ran right to their mother, and they said they could keep secrets. I said it wasn't a secret, just a question, and I wasn't accusing anyone of anything at that point, so why did you think it was a secret? They said I only would ask that if I thought something was going on between them. They got mad and a little defensive, saying their mother would never do anything like that. Honestly, I think they know and want whatever they think will make their mother happy, and they must think that is AP right now and not me. Not 100% sure, though. It is possible that they think she's just too much of an angel to ever cheat. I think AP and my oldest child became friends during the internship because my wife was friends with him. I know they used to talk at work, but that's all I know. Both my children have always been very supportive of my team. They never seemed to resent the time I spent with the team and would ask if they could come with me a lot. My wife would not want to go with me, but my kids always did and still do. They seem to love the team. I've never thought to ask if she told AP about her son. As far as the team goes, we have gotten into a few arguments about it, and I warned her to never corner me into having to choose between my team and her. She might not like the answer, more so because I don't like her giving me an ultimatum more than choosing my team over her. Early in my career, I would have chosen her for sure. The last few years, I would choose the team because I figured she had checked out and was probably cheating, etc. The last year or so, I've actually talked to her about me retiring and selling the team in about 2 years, but I want to get out on my terms, when I want, not be forced to. I told her I wasn't tracking her car, but she doesn't believe me. She still thinks I'm tracking it. I think that's stupid because she could just leave her car and take AP's. I did ask her directly if she wanted a divorce, and she said no. She actually offered me access to all her accounts. I didn't demand it. I can see his texts to her and her responses, but she could be deleting a lot, hard to tell. It seems he has no idea that I'm looking at them, although the I love you, etc. have stopped, so she has definitely said something to him. They don't seem staged. He still talks about going out and getting drinks after work, etc. But now with other people and telling her office gossip, etc. In her position, she can basically decide if she works on projects directly with him, and I didn't tell her she can't work with him anymore. I wanted her to tell me that herself, but I now feel like I've got to draw a line at that. No more projects with him. It's time to go no contact. She has said that she's trying to have less and less to do with him, and how she now sees that he's very immature emotionally, etc. She also said that she now thinks he's fat and doesn't find him attractive, but I honestly don't believe her on any of that, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. There seems to be no remorse. I think she feels justified or doesn't think she did anything wrong. As far as the sex goes, she has 100% initiated it, and honestly it has been pretty hot and I've enjoyed myself. She has told me she loved me again, but that has slowed down again, and how the hell do you tell if she means it? It's obvious I can't see through her lies all that well. I have read what everyone has posted, and it made me realize that I was only trying to save our marriage because of what I was afraid of losing. Not that I really loved her anymore. I still love her, but I love who she used to be, and as the mother of my children. There's no more romantic love as a couple, if you know what I mean. I know I'll never trust her again either. I laid out a few things that I have to have going forward last night. We'll see how it goes. 0 contact with AP. There's no meeting son with my kids or telling them without me. She needs to tell me the truth and show some remorse. I told her I'm talking to a lawyer, and unless there is a miracle, I'm having a separation agreement written, and I will ask her to leave, she cried, went to her room, and I have not spoken to her since. Update 3. To make a very long story short, we are now divorced. She wouldn't stop contact with AP. Showed no remorse. Blame shifted. Never really came clean. I know in my heart I gave it my very best to save what we had. Did I make mistakes? Yes. Looking back, I of course would have done things differently, but it is what it is. I had enough. I lost a lot in the divorce, but it had to happen. I kept the home and the team, had to give up everything else, retirement savings, etc. But it was worth it. I'm good now. Still hurts to think about it, but it gets better every day. Enjoying all the things in my life again. My brother and his family have really been there for me. I don't want to be too long, so if there is anything else, I'll try and answer. So there's your final update. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Boyfriend cheated on his wife with me. How do I bond with his kids when they hate me so much for breaking their family? I'm dating a man, and his kids hate me because I was a mistress. How do I bond with them when they hate me? I was only trying to protect their dad from their mother's abuse, and now I'm worried she is turning her kids against me. Even though her kids said she can make her own mind up. But because she and her mother get on well, I'm concerned she is worrying about her mother too much and is scared that she will upset her. Fake names. Chase, my boyfriend, 33M. Jane, Chase's eldest daughter, 8F. Alex, Chase's eldest son and second child, 5M. Chelsea, Chase's third child, 2F. Jessica, Chase's youngest child, 9 months old. Willow, Chase's ex and the kid's mother, 31F. Me, 27F. This is how me and Chase met. Chase and his wife first met in January 2011 when he was 20 and she was 18. They began dating for 4 to 5 years until 2014, when Chase was 24. His birthday is in summer. They both got married and welcomed a beautiful baby girl on July 14, 2015, called Jane. They had more beautiful babies throughout the years and had a beautiful relationship until Chase filed for divorce in December 2022. Their relationship was breaking down for multiple reasons, such as they were both too tired to look after Jessica, and I felt bad for Chase because he was made to do a lot of the work, and Willow would always berate him. I first met him when I took my niece, nephew, and younger cousins to the park, and they were there. I overheard them argue as their children were playing, so they couldn't hear them and they weren't noticing. Willow was asking him where the diapers were, and Chase forgot. This caused an argument since Willow answered back, "Please tell me you did not forget the diapers. How am I supposed to change them now? Hey, the baby pooped itself. Can you go back to get them, honey?" Chase said he can't because he's tired and he can't walk back 6 streets away just to get a packet of diapers. "What do you mean you can't walk back a few streets away? I was the pregnant one, not you. You don't have to worry. After walking a few streets away, can you at least buy me a new pair of diapers?" Chase looked confused. "For you too, for the baby. Stop trying to be funny. I will go since you keep on doing my heading." Willow storms off to go to the shops. I asked him, "Does she always yell at him this much?" Chase told me, "Pretty much since she got pregnant with the 4th kid. That's not normal. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's not normal to treat your partner like that. Pregnancy is not an excuse to be rude to people. How about I lend you a diaper so you can change the baby?" I asked him. He thanked me and then we made small talk. I met their baby for the first time, and she was so adorable. Chase told me her name, and I said hi to baby Jessica. From there, Chase and I became friends. I told him I found the wife needing diapers joke funny, and we had a good laugh. Willow came shortly after, a little stunned, but she didn't think much of it since she had male friends too, and she's not the type of person to get paranoid over having friends of the opposite gender. I quickly befriended Willow, and we followed each other on Facebook and Instagram shortly after. Before coming home, I saw Chase a week later in a pub with his then-wife, Willow, as they were having drinks for the first time since giving birth. Willow had to go to the bathroom and I began to chat to Chase. I asked if Willow still nags him, in which he responded, "Yes." I felt bad and said, "Don't worry. If she can't treat you right, then I will. Don't tell her or she will get mad," before winking at him, which made him giggle. From there, we began dating behind Willow's back until December 13, 2022, when Willow came back with Jane to get her nails done and caught me and Chase cuddling on the sofa watching TV, and she flipped out extremely at us to the point where both Willow and Jane were in tears because of it. Chase tried to explain, "It's not what it looks like," until he realized no one was buying it. Alex was asking why his mom was yelling at his dad until Jane pointed at me and said it was my fault. Alex looked sad and went back upstairs. I told Willow we were sorry, but it was not appropriate to argue in front of the kids and to think of the children. Willow screamed back, "If you care so much about the kids, then why did you break up their family? I finally found happiness after such a rough life I went through, and you ruined it just because you wanted Chase for yourself, just because you're jealous and you couldn't find anyone, so you had to steal people away from others." Willow suddenly realized Jane was watching everything and began crying and apologizing to the children for making them watch that, and she wasn't thinking straight. But she didn't mean to upset them. The younger ones were just scared and stood there. But Jane told her, "It's okay, and it's not her mom's fault that I'm horrible." I went quiet because I didn't know a 7-year-old, 7 at the time, knew what those words meant, but I guess she was repeating them from their mom, so that's what influenced her to act that way. I apologized and explained to her that it wasn't appropriate for us adults to argue in front of children. I explained how I tried to get them to stop, but her mother wasn't listening. She told me that me and her dad shouldn't have done that. My mom got angry if I didn't want her to shout at me, called me a fat pig, and told me to get lost. She stormed off to her bedroom. How does a 7-year-old know such details? I tried to explain that I am sorry for breaking up her family and asked if she wanted to move on, put that in the past, and that me and Chase will always love the kids. Alex and Chelsea accepted my apology, but Jane kept on ignoring me. Chase and I got kicked out, and he filed for divorce on December 15th. The court thing is still going. They ended up getting 50-50 custody, not straight away. When they first got to my house, since I offered Chase and the kids to move to mine since I have more room, I wanted to welcome the kids by giving them a hug, but Jane pulled them away and said she hurt Mommy and made her sad. So don't go near her, and told me she didn't want me here, and she only came because she was forced to. I gave them their teddy bears with their names on it, which I got knitted by my sister just for them with my own money. Chase offered to pay, but I refused. I thought it wouldn't hurt to give the kids a small welcome present. Jane told me she hated the teddy bears and they look ugly. She said she has her own one that Mommy gave, and Mommy's one was better. Why is she acting like her mom's personal therapist? It's not her job to look after her mom's feelings. And I said that she doesn't need to look after her mom, and she said she isn't forced and that I want to look after Mommy forever, even though she says I don't have to and it's her job. But I still want to, and she isn't forced, and accused me of trying to make her hate her mom. Jane came running back down to sit on the sofa. She used her fingers to go through the sewn-up teddy bear and rip them apart, then stormed off to her bedroom. I went to my bedroom and cried. I got that made personally just for the children, a welcome gift, and she destroyed it. Why is she rude to me every time she comes to my house? I know I upset her mother, but I want her to bond with me, but she wouldn't let me. I tried to come to her events, but she ran up to her mom and dad in happiness, then pulled a tantrum every time she sees me and says, "What am I doing here?" And she doesn't want me here. She says she won't stop pulling a tantrum until I go. And I had to leave almost every family event in tears because everyone will stare at me and give me dirty looks. She even skipped a few of her siblings' events because I was there and said she won't go if I'm going. Willow tells me that I should have thought about that before breaking up the family. And I said I know and I'm sorry. I've already been punished enough, and now my own boyfriend's parents and family hate me and don't want me at family events because they want Willow to feel safe in their home. And Jane always starts crying every time I'm joining in. She got on well with Chase eventually, but she still hates me. Last month this year, I showed up with Chase to celebrate her birthday, as Chase was invited. But she began screaming and crying and said she doesn't want me here and I ruined her birthday. She grabbed my present, opened it up, and broke the doll into pieces before throwing it in the bin and said it was the worst present ever and made me cry. Willow said, "Well, no one told you to cheat with my ex-husband and break up the family. You should have thought about that beforehand, and that it's her choice if she doesn't want you here. Then you should leave since I didn't even want you guys coming here. But I only invited you both just so you don't sue me for parental alienation." Me and Chase were cussed out by the entire adults, especially Willow's granddad, who came up to me and screamed at me saying it was my fault for breaking up the family and manipulating Chase, along with Chase's mom even trying to escort me out with his dad escorting both of us out. It even got to the point where now she will get up, get changed, have a shower, have breakfast, brush her teeth, go to her maternal grandparents, my grandparents, or go out in the town with her mom all day, then come back late at night at 8:30 p.m. Brush her teeth, get dressed, and go to sleep. She even demands she sleepovers to get away from me and her dad during his custody turn. He tried to sue for parental alienation, but the judge said unless she's sleeping over her mom's during our custody term, then her meeting up with her mom outside of her house is not violating custody agreements. I messed up. I tried to call a therapist yesterday, but Willow threatened to take me to court if I try to do parental stuff, and it turned out she already put them in therapy ages ago, and the therapist said while bonding with Chase will be nice, she doesn't have to not hate me if she doesn't want to, as long as she's being civil and won't take it out on potential half-siblings in the future. How do I get her to stop avoiding me and hating me and get her to understand that she doesn't have to be afraid of what her mother thinks? Update 1. Me and Chase were going on a date night. I hired a babysitter to watch over my boyfriend's children while we go out to a restaurant out of our local area to eat out. Chase had some rules. That the children sleep at 11 p.m. Are not allowed fizzy drinks, and are not allowed to drink or invite people to our home. They aren't allowed to take the children out after 7 p.m. That sounds reasonable in my opinion. I told the babysitter I made chicken nuggets, there's lollipops, a packet of crisps, sweets, or a bowl of fruit, and I also made some cheesecake if they get hungry. I let her know not to serve them all at once, but they were just options. I even got juice cartons with straws in case they were thirsty, and she understood. I gave her a list of instructions so she knew how to look after the children. Then me and Chase took off. I came back 2 hours later. It would usually take 1 hour and 30 minutes, but there was traffic, and I let the babysitter know and I apologized, which she accepted and said she understood. I found the babysitter feeding Jane, Alex, and Chelsea a can of Coke with 3 packets of Smarties each. Not 1 packet per child, 3 packets per child, which me and Chase didn't even buy, and the Coke cans were on the highest shelf on our fridge, which the children besides Jane wouldn't even notice if they open it because the fridge is tall. Chelsea had Coke dripping down her shirt and chocolate around her mouth, and Alex came up and cried to me and Chase because his stomach was hurting. I wondered where Jessica was, so I went to her cot. She has 2 cots, one upstairs and one downstairs in the living room, and she was in the one in the living room and found her eating a whole banana to herself. Jessica is being introduced to solids, but she can only eat apples and bananas if they are cut up, which is what was said on the paper. Chase immediately took the banana off Jessica, which led to her crying. Chase would have let the babysitter off with a warning had it just been the Coke or the 3 packets, had the packets just been the packets we bought. But Jess could have been choking and suffered had she had the whole banana, not to mention the babysitter bought a can of beer and drunk it at our home and left the children home on their own. Chase was understandably mad and fired the babysitter on the spot while only giving her half of the money that she should be getting, even getting mad at the babysitter for going out while leaving the children on their own with Jane to look after, since an 8-year-old shouldn't be babysitting younger children, and drinking it while looking after the babies. Anything could have happened to his kids if they were left on their own for that long. It's not like Alex, Chelsea, and Jane were 12, 15, and 19, because if that was the case, then I wouldn't be that mad since someone of that age can look after themselves on their own for a short while. But a 5-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 9-month-old should not ever be left alone, and I'm just glad nothing happened to them. I even admit that I flipped out at the babysitter as well. The babysitter left in tears after promising it wouldn't happen again, but I didn't want to risk the children's safety and neither did Chase. So we said to her, it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen again. You left 4 young children on their own, was drinking alcohol while babysitting, and she broke a lot of rules, and we weren't going to compromise the children's safety. The children, Jane, Alex, and Chelsea, were up, and Jessica stayed in her crib after their dad sent them up so we could have a word with the babysitter, so they didn't hear much since they had headphones on and were watching cartoons on their tablets upstairs. That was that. Once the babysitter left, we went back up to put the children to bed. Before you ask, we cleaned the chocolate off Chelsea, and I took her to the dining room to the bathroom, which was next to the kitchen, to change while Chase was telling the babysitter off while Jane and Alex just got wipes to wipe off the chocolate around their mouths. Today, a few hours ago, I vented to my mom, but she complained that me and Chase were too harsh on the babysitter, and everyone makes mistakes, so maybe we were being too hard on the babysitter. Were Chase and I harsh on the babysitter? Extra information just in case you're concerned with us storing junk food. We don't usually keep junk food around our house. We just had 1 multipack of 8 chocolate bars and 1 multipack of 6 packets of crisps, but we don't eat it too often. This was just a treat, and we limit how much junk they can eat, and they're not too big on junk food. Update 2. BKBM, boyfriend's kid's bio mom, got mad because she couldn't afford to get her son a Lego set. The Lego set cost £15, and her son came to me crying when it was my boyfriend's turn to get custody because his mom wouldn't get it because it was too expensive. He asked me why his mom can't afford toys, and I told him, don't worry. Some people can't afford nice things, but it's okay because I will buy it for you instead since I got enough money. I took him shopping with me to buy the Lego set he wanted, and he got to take it home with him this Monday when he went over to his mother's house. According to his mother, he went on about how he loves me so much because I bought him a toy. Apparently, this made her mad because when me and my boyfriend came over yesterday to collect the kids, she had a go at me and started accusing me of trying to turn her son against her because now apparently her son says he likes me more because I can buy him the Lego set and she couldn't, so he loves me more. I tried to explain to my boyfriend's son that not everyone can afford nice things, but that wasn't good enough for her because I'm apparently trying to cause drama. Even though she's the one that argues in front of her and my boyfriend's kid instead of talking to us privately like grown-ups. But I was just trying to look out for her financially and save her the burden of spending a lot of money because she isn't broke, but she can't afford stuff that most people can. My boyfriend even said that we're not trying to cause drama and that he can return it if he wants to. Which she said, so what? You can tell the kids that I won't let them play with toys you and your girlfriend buy and have them hate me even more. They don't hate her, but her son wished she could buy him toys over 10 pounds. I'm not falling for that, you know what? Forget it. But if you even try to pull that with me and try to turn the kids against me, then there will be serious trouble. She said goodbyes to my boyfriend's kids and headed home. My boyfriend's son asked if he will be in trouble and asked if he isn't allowed to play with his Lego, to which me and his father said not to worry and nothing will happen. We said he can play with it if he wants. He doesn't touch the Lego set now because he's scared that his mother will get upset, even though it's just a toy. This isn't the first time that she had tried to poison my boyfriend and her kids against us, and even the law had to step in, get her in trouble, and warn her that we could sue her for parental alienation if she turns the kids against us. She tried to sue us for parental alienation once and lost, so now she's bitter that she can't turn the kids against us. I didn't think trying to save my boyfriend's children's mother money and spending a lot on a toy is a bad thing, but it's now bad co-parenting and overstepping. Was I really overstepping? Update 3: Me, my boyfriend, and his children are going abroad in December to visit his family for Christmas. One of them is a baby. BM is okay with it, and we booked her a hotel and paid for her ticket and plane as well, and my boyfriend will also pick her up too. And this is my first time traveling with a baby, 1F. As a grown-up, 27F. Because I do not want to disturb the other passengers on the plane. What can I bring to put a baby to sleep, and how can I put a baby to sleep on a plane? I will bring her favorite teddy bear and I will put on cartoons on for her. But she will be tired since the plane ride will be long. And I can't really walk around while holding her when she is crying because other people do not want to hear her cry, understandably so. How can I put a baby to sleep on a plane? What have you done to soothe a crying baby on a plane or put a baby to sleep on a plane? Now on to the next story. Story 9. Am I wrong for being upset because my boyfriend is buying more expensive gifts for his mother? I, 18F, have been with my BF, 20M, for a year and some change. I would just like to say I'm not saying I hate his mother. We actually get along quite well. But recently, since holidays are coming up, we were casually talking about gifts. I told him I would be getting his mom a necklace of this certain genre she likes. He has decided to get her these really expensive shoes. For a bit of context, we are going on a family trip, and he had told me since he was going to pay for my ticket that I would unfortunately have to settle for a not-so-expensive Christmas gift since he wouldn't be able to afford it. I said sure, it was fine, but I also had offered to give him at least half of the money for the plane ticket, but he wouldn't let me no matter what. But now he can afford to buy his mother expensive shoes while the only thing he's getting me is PJs. I'm not trying to sound rotten or spoiled. I just don't understand why I'm getting the short end of the stick when he had told me he wouldn't be able to afford anything crazy. He's also not one of those obsessed boy moms, though his mother is a bit like one. He has always defended me and has even threatened to move out of their home if they ever crossed any boundaries with me. And I know they don't hate me because they have always supported me financially and emotionally. I'm an orphan, so this is why the situation feels a little weird for me. I don't know if I'm allowed to feel this way or stay quiet and just suck it up. I thought I should make this clear since there was some miscommunication. The plane ticket isn't a Christmas gift. He had got it for us for our anniversary in September. Yes, I have offered to pay for it multiple times. I am not spoiled and accepted it right away. But either way, judging off of everyone's comment, it seems that I am the Aholi, so I will apologize to him and talk to him about everything. Update 1. A lot of people have been saying, what do I bring to the table, or what worth do I have to be compared to his mother, which I don't think it's appropriate. If I were to make a list of things that I do for him and he does for me, would it actually be out of genuine or would it be out of keeping tabs? I only brought up the groceries comment so people didn't think I actually just let him spend so much of that money. Also, just for a little buff, for a lot of people don't seem to understand why our relationship is the way it is, and to put in simple terms, as family and I are close because of events we went through together that includes when I was in a life-threatening accident, when our dog Slat passed away, when he was failing school, we all pulled together to push him through school. And finally, when my court trial proceedings started happening, his family was there to make me feel like I wasn't alone. Like I said, I've never disliked his family, and our bond is practically unbreakable. I was never upset she got a better gift. She's done a lot for us. I was only upset because it was something we had talked about that he wouldn't go overboard with. Not getting any expensive Christmas gift did not just apply to me. It was for everyone. In my eyes, him getting me the PJs seemed like a way to soften the blow from making the purchase without telling me. Knowing him and I are trying to save for a future together. Comment where Opie has replied. Commentator asked if the boyfriend has been able to spend some money on his mother since she has been nice to Opie, and if the boyfriend has been spoiling his mother too much. Opie. No, it's completely okay. My fault for reading it wrong. His parents are very well off, which is why he is also pretty well off. He doesn't get his mother a lot of things, which is why I was so shocked this year because last year he didn't get his mother anything since her husband had bought her everything she wanted, so she asked nothing from him. I'm assuming maybe the circumstances have changed this year, which is why I will be talking to him because maybe there's something I don't know. But even then, I just thought, which is my fault, that we were going to stick to our budget like we had said we would. But everyone else is right. I'm only his girlfriend, so my words shouldn't weigh as much as his mother's does. I can see that point that everyone is making now. Update 2. This is a little bit of a long update, so I'm super sorry. I realized I didn't mention this in the original post, but me and boyfriend do live together, so when the original post went up, he was already asleep, so we didn't get the chance to talk about it till we woke up this morning to go to the gym. He did apologize to me for not communicating that he was going to go out of budget again with his mother's gift. He had explained that after buying my plane ticket, he was planning on not getting anything expensive for anyone. But when the time came around, he was struggling to find something that lived up to his mother's taste, so he had to go a bit out of budget so she wouldn't be disappointed. He originally said he didn't want to get her anything, but since her husband got her this new bag she wanted at the beginning of the year, he didn't want to get her anything else for Christmas. So in return, my boyfriend felt bad and got her something since she kept calling him about how upset she was. I felt terrible and told him that I was sorry for getting so upset. I just didn't understand why he had a sudden change of mindset. We both do agree that I should go to therapy a bit more since the only reason why it affected me so much was because I did not have the capabilities to understand why his relationship with his mother was the way that it was, and we both agreed it was partially because I never had one with my own set of parents to understand. So I excused myself on behalf of that and agreed that just because I don't feel comfortable or understand something doesn't give me the right to assume things. He reminded me that I will always be his number one priority and the first in line for everything, but that this time around was different because his dad decided to not step up to the plate for his mother, and he apologized for keeping this from me despite not having a reason to. As for me picking up the bill for groceries, he did notice and said he was grateful that I cared enough to make sure he didn't waste any more money. But a fear of having no money was the one feeling he could not share with me, and that issue alone was something that I had to work on, which I do agree. We grew up two different ways, so I've always been the one to worry about the purchases we made and how we'll be able to obtain a comfortable future. So thank you for everyone who commented on the original post for humbling me, but also thank you for making me realize that just because I see things one way doesn't mean it's the only way to see them. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.